Thursday edition of Mic'd Up with Jake and Fulton. Except today, it is one of our rare just Fulton episodes of Mic'd Up. Jake LeBon is on the road. He left a little bit earlier than expected. He has to go to Jefferson City, Missouri for Washburn Hoops this evening. The Washburn Ichabod's men's and women's basketball teams are taking on the Lincoln Blue Tigers tonight from Jason Gymnasium in Jeff City. So Jake is on the road. It's a nice long drive. And with the weather that hit us overnight, where apparently the state of Kansas got upset that Travis Kelce was the one that was iced out yesterday with the Bud Light chain. And so the state needed to ice out themselves, as it was a very icy overnight, very slippery morning here in the capital city. So Jake is on the road. He's going to be doing that. So it will just be me today. I'll have Kyle, of course, join me a little bit as we go through all those lists and different things going on today. But it is more of a solo show of Mic'd Up coming for you today from noon to 3 right here on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW. Coming up on today's show, with the parade over, the celebrations kind of done, we can now move into the offseason for the Kansas City Chiefs, and that's what we will start doing today. The Chiefs got some free agents on their list, the decently sized list of 2023 free agents. I'll go through who I think should definitely be back, who are the guys they should consider bringing back, and who are the select few players I think, unfortunately, will not be playing at GEHA Field Arrowhead Stadium coming up in the 2023-2024 season. Also, my favorite time of year, I wore the hat for the occasion because football season is over, which I know makes some of you sad. But that means baseball season is here, baby. Royals pitchers and catchers reported yesterday. They are rolling down in Surprise, Arizona. We got quotes coming up from writers down in Surprise. We have video of Salvador Perez catching. We have video of Brady Singer and company throwing off of dirt mounds in Arizona. That means we're talking baseballs, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very excited because for right now, the Royals have yet to disappoint me. And I'm going to ride this rare optimism as long as it'll take me. Because as you all know, very much so at this point, I can get pretty negative on this team at any given moment. So you know what? We're just going to ride the optimism. We're going to look at the Royals today. Kind of a little bit of a look at some of the major things they've done the past few days. We got some quotes from Brady Singer. His arbitration case has wrapped up. The Royals won the case. We'll break down a little bit what that means and look at how arbitration works. We'll also look at Ned Yost. He has been elected to the Royals Hall of Fame. Beloved catcher manager Ned Yost will be elected to the Royals Hall of Fame, will be inducted on September 2nd this year. We'll look at Ned, some of the highlights, and discuss and see if we're all on the same page about Ned Yost being in the Royals Hall of Fame and getting inducted later on this year. As well as joining me in the bottom of the 1 o'clock hour, our good friend David Lesky from Inside the Crown will join me to chat a little bit of Royals baseball, get his thoughts on some of the recent signings, and just overall his vibes going into spring training. We will also look a little bit at the Chiefs offseason narrative. Some people seem to be upset that Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes were calling out the haters, as it was yesterday. I'm going to look at that and point out they were kind of right. So we'll look at that as well. Jesse Newell of the Kansas City Star is going to join me at the top of the 2 o'clock hour. We get Everyone Loves the List. It is going to be a jam-packed edition of the show, including, folks, we're giving away a pair of K-State tickets to their game against Iowa State coming up this Saturday at Bramlage Coliseum in Manhattan, Kansas. So be listening. We're going to give away those tickets coming up this hour. Not right now. Do not call in right now. But this hour, we are going to give away a pair of tickets to K-State and Iowa State coming up. So be listening. Be listening. For when I call for that caller, you can call in and win yourself a pair of tickets to K-State and Iowa State. Go see the Cats play in Manhattan as they try and turn this little, I'll call it a very minor tailspin. It's not the end of the world at all. K-State's a very still talented team. I'm kind of not like Jerome Tang, where I think they need to get a couple more wins to be in the tournament. I think they're kind of there. But they have some things to work on, and they will, and we're going to get to more of that coming up tomorrow. But we do have a pair of K-State tickets to give away today on today's show. As always, if you want to be a part of the show, which, more importantly, when it's just me, I even love you even more being a part of the show because I can interact with you a lot more directly when it's just me running things and running the ship. You can join in on the show on the Big O Tires text line, 785-272-9429, or we are live on YouTube, as we always are. go to either our YouTube page, Sportsland580. Subscribe if you have not. We would appreciate it. You can jump in the live comments of that show as well. But to kick off today's show, the Chiefs offseason has arrived. The new league year doesn't start till sometime in March. I don't know the exact date, nor at this point do I really care. Because there's nothing about the Chiefs specifically where the new league year is really going to matter at this moment in time. We'll get into that more when time comes. But the Chiefs have some free agents this year, some more important than others. And now that we're moving into this kind of off-season point where we're kind of, trying to look at what the Chiefs, might need to do and different things like that, we can get this idea of who should they bring back, I guess is the really simplest and best way to put this. Who should come back? Who should be let go? The Chiefs officially have 21 players deemed as free agents going into next season. Now, some of those players are unrestricted free agents, the ones that can kind of go do whatever they want. Some are restricted free agents where the Chiefs basically get to put kind of a tender or a tag on them, basically giving them a contract offer. And then if a team can try and take them, you get a little bit of compensation. And then the Chiefs have 3 exclusive rights free agents that basically they're guaranteed to come back. There's a little bit of negotiating on actual price. But we're going to really look at this in the form of guys that are more of the unrestricted free agent variety. We're going to look at the UFAs. These are the specific ones we're going to look at here in this one. The guys that can just kind of walk as they please. One of them could and probably will get the franchise tag. The UFAs you get the franchise tag to, that date will be coming up in about a month or XYZ or so to at least nominate who you be placing the franchise tag tender on. And then somebody's going to let go. So here's how I break this down. Because of the 21 free agents the Chiefs has, and I want to make sure my math is right, and as we all know, my math is very sketchy. Yes, of the 21 free agents the Chiefs have, 16 are unrestricted free agents. So, with that in mind, let's go through, and I've broken this into 3 categories. Back, guys that I think they will re-sign, and more importantly, should re-sign. Effort should be taken in to re-sign these players, or guys that I just think no matter what, the Chiefs are going to bring them back because there's no reason they would leave. That really applies to mainly one guy in this list that you might go, where you might kind of wonder, like, why, you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying. Here are the guys that are going to be back. Orlando Brown Jr. He's either getting a big extension or he's playing under the franchise tag. The Royals are not letting, I got Royals on the brain today. That might happen a lot. The Chiefs will not let Orlando Brown Jr. go. He's going to be back. I would hope it's under a long-form contract extension because I was already more than Jake was on the pay Orlando Brown train because I thought he was better than a lot of people were assuming going into this year. I thought he was a lot better and didn't have some of those issues. Then I will admit he had some struggles this year. But he just put on a great performance at the biggest time in the Super Bowl and was really good all playoffs. So no matter what, they will put a franchise tag on him. He'll make about $18.1 million if he has to play out on the tag. I think that's going to happen there. The next guy I think should be back and will be back, that's Juju Smith-Schuster. The difficulty with Juju comes down to contract and price. Juju played well enough, he might have priced himself out of Kansas City. At the same time, comes down to how much do the Chiefs want to spend. And also, how much does Juju want to be back? That's the piece of this that the Chiefs are going to try and balance the best they can. Coming up in this offseason is with Juju, but I think he'd be a nice veteran piece. He played well with Mahomes. I think that would work. Going to another offensive lineman, Andrew Wiley is an unrestricted free agent. I think the Chiefs are going to make a good attempt to bring him back. That will come down to price as well. Last year, they were able to bring him back on a 1-year, $2.5 million fully guaranteed deal. But with how well he just played in the Super Bowl, the fact that for the first time in his career, he started and played in all 17 games in the regular season. He was great all year. He did just well enough. Much like Brown, he had his down moments, but overall played fairly well. You'd have to think for the right price, he would be back. I think he should be back. This one I'm going to gloss over. Michael Burton, he'll be back. I mean, the Chiefs will offer him, a couple $1 million, maybe that much, if anything. He'll get near vet minimum, and then Burton will be back, and no one's going to think the different part of it. Like, the Chiefs like their fullback. Burton does a good job. It'll make sense. He'd have to try and be back. Then the other one I put in the back, I would make sure to re-sign category, which is going to cap us off at 5 dudes here, is Colin Saunders. I think Colin Saunders played really well to wrap up the season. I think he played well in Super Bowl. He got the only sack on Jalen Hurts, showing his speed and athleticism. And I think we need a good defensive tackle to pair along with Chris Jones, and I think Colin Saunders works. Your other option there is Derek Nottie, who's also a free agent. Spoiler, I might think it's time for Derek Nottie to maybe get the walking papers. Those are the 5 guys, Brown, Juju, Wiley, Michael Burton, and Colin Saunders, who I think the Chiefs need to try and make sure are back. Those are the 5 guys I would try to make sure that you have the room for and can make work. How that works, how that's going to work out, I do not know. That is, kind of whatever the Chiefs need to do and where they kind of go with their cap, because their cap is not the biggest right now, but they're going to try and make it work and try and figure it out and see what they can do and try and figure out what their cap space should be. Speaking of cap space, on the YouTube comment section, our guy Vance asked, how much cap room the Chiefs have? That's a great question, Vance, and I do actually have that number for you. It's still estimated with the league year and some rollover cap space. I'm going to just put that caveat to it. All of this is estimated numbers. The Chiefs, with rollover space and their top contracts included, have about $11 million in cap space right now. It might end up being a little bit less when some different factors come in. So that's not a ton, which I cannot lie would make you worry. Here's what I'll remind everybody. You're going to save $21 million with Frank Clark. Frank's getting cut. Frank's cap hit currently for next year is $30 million. I love Frank. I think he did a great job in the playoffs, as he always does. I think he had one of his better years in Kansas City since his first year in 2019. Frank's getting cut. There's $21 million right there. Chris Jones should probably get an extension. He's currently going to have a $28 million cap hit. He's going to be third highest currently on the team in cap hit behind Mahomes and Clark. Jones is probably going to get a restructuring deal, which would lower that cap hit, create you more space. You'd have to assume that that's going to happen. And then we have, Patrick Mahomes' $46 million cap hit. The Chiefs did not trigger the restructure last year that converts his a part of his cap hit into a roster bonus that then he gets paid directly and helps the cap situation. They have that option this year. So as of now, long story short, the Chiefs, I would say, before any chicanery comes in with adjusting contracts, I'd say they have between $7 to $11 million in cap space, which I can't lie is not a lot. But with the things they can do, I think the Chiefs will effectively be working with about 40 to 45 million in cap space, which is a lot given the type of dealing I think they'll be doing and the wheeling and dealing they'll try and do. Here are the guys that I think they should consider bringing back, but if they walked, you're not going to lose your mind. Mecole Hardman. Mecole had injury issues this year that affected some things in the way that he was able to play. And I don't know. Someone I think might give him a contract. At the same time, I mean, Mecole, does he take a 1 to 2 year prove-it deal, reset his market in Kansas City, then go make money in a year or two? I don't know. That's kind of an up-in-the-air thing. Carlos Dunlap. I wouldn't mind Carlos Dunlap being back, but I don't think it's a necessity. You can either draft another young edge rusher to add the rotation. You can find a different veteran piece to it. Hell, Carlos Dunlap might take some time and just retire. He got his ring finally. He has his 100 career sacks. Like, he has had a great career. If he wants to be back for the right price, I'm cool with it. If not, let Dunlap walk. Blake Bell, fantastic blocking tight end. Blake, the Belldozer, has been here for a while. You have Judy Fortson, who's played well. Noah Gray's really coming on. Obviously, you have Travis Kelce. I don't think it's a need to have Blake Bell, but again, money right, I keep him. Jerick McKinnon. Jake, I know, wants Jerick back. Jake would be cool with it. I'm cool with Jerick if McKinnon comes back. You don't need him, though. Like, you would be a third running back to go with Isaiah Pacheco and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And McKinnon, with his pass protection, his veteran leadership, had 10 total touchdowns, a career high this year. I'd love for him to be back, but maybe someone offers McKinnon a bigger deal than we expect and he goes somewhere else. Who knows? McKinnon, though, is in that maybe category. Juan Thornhill is in that maybe category of seeing what he could be able to do coming up here this season. It comes down to price for me with Juan Thornhill, because if Juan doesn't want to stay for a proper price and he wants to go make more money elsewhere, which is his prerogative, he's a 2-time Super Bowl champion now, You have Brian Cook. And Brian Cook really got better as the year went on. I'd be cool with Brian Cook doing some things and trying to perform better as well. So Juan Thornhill is definitely for me hard. If the money works, bring back Juan. If it doesn't, start Brian Cook. I think Cook and Justin Reed could be a fine safety pair going forward. And you just get a third veteran safety. Najee Johnson, honestly, they kept him as one of their 7th rounders last year, was really only a special teamer this year. Depending on how he develops, there's your third safety right there, cross-controlled. And then finally in the maybe category is Nick Allegretti, a great reserve lineman. Those are in demand in the NFL. Someone else might offer him a little bit more money to go somewhere instead of stay around. So I'd be cool with Nick Allegretti coming back, but that's not a necessity as well. So Hardman, Dunlap, Bell, McKinnon, Thornhill, Allegretti, they're what I call my maybe category. They're guys that if the money works, sign them back. But I don't think you need to put a lot of effort into bringing any of those guys back specifically, because I think you have other things in place that can make it work. I don't know if any of them fully move the needle on trying to run it back next year. And then I have the 4 free agents that I think are just, don't waste your time. Say, thanks for coming. Go, let them go elsewhere. Derek Nottie, if you're signing Colin, you're picking Nottie or Saunders, in my opinion. You pick one of the two. Saunders is younger, has better pass rush potential. He picked up 3.5 sacks this year, and he holds his own in the run game. Like, I would go Colin Saunders, but that's just me personally. Derek Nottie, best wishes, my man. You've done great work. I would let Nottie maybe go make some money elsewhere. That's just me. Ronald Jones, that ruined you. That's done. Like, Ronald had been wanting to leave for a while. The Chiefs never really used him. Ronald Jones, happy trails, buddy. Your tweets were hilarious. Deion Bush, that comes down to how you feel about Najee Johnson if you need a third safety. If let Juan Thornhill goes and you don't like Najee Johnson as your third safety, maybe I would say re-sign Deion Bush because it probably wouldn't be that expensive. But I wouldn't really do it as well. I just wouldn't do it as well either. And then Justin Watson's the last one. We talked about earlier this year that Justin Watson might have played well enough to get him a contract back. At the same time, do you need it as much? Maybe you do. That's kind of such an iffy thing. But if Justin wants to come back on a cheap deal, I'm kind of with it as well. We'll just kind of wait and we'll see. But those are the 4 guys that I'm like, Nottie, Rojo, Deion Bush, and Justin Watson. I'm like, I don't think they're as necessary. All of this comes down to what the Chiefs want to do. There's going to be some guys not on this list that, might have some different issues. There's going to be some veterans they're going to bring in to replace some of these guys. I don't know the mind of Brett Veach and what he wants to do. That's just what I think, and this is just the early look at what the contract situation might look for the Chiefs coming up next year as this offseason will begin in short order. And we have to start thinking about what the Chiefs do to build their team up next year and try and capture the 3rd Super Bowl championship of the Patrick Mahomes era. We're going to get time out here on Mic'd Up. Coming up next, it's your chance to win a pair of K-State tickets. here on 580 WIBW. Fulton with you riding solo for today's show as Jake is on his road to as he said, to Jeff City for Washburn Hoops. He's not headed to Washburn. He said to Washburn. He would definitely still be here right now because that's, a much, much, much closer ride than the 3.5 hours he's going to have to drive to go all the way out and try and enjoy himself. And Jeff City, as Washburn takes on the Lincoln Blue Tigers coming up later on today on our sister station, Country 106.9. I'm done teasing you. It is time to give away a pair of K-State tickets here on Mic'd Up on 580 WIBW. These are a physical pair of tickets. We would prefer you to come to the station, if possible, to pick them up by the time the game goes on Saturday. However, we have other different methods as well. But with that in mind, I'm going to look for caller number 5. Caller number 5, you can call in at 785-272-9429. Again, that number is 785-272-9429. Be caller number 5, and you can win a pair of K-State tickets as they take on the Iowa State Cyclones coming up on Saturday. Should be a fun game. K-State trying to rebound a little bit, try and find themselves. I think they will. I've been at times considered a K-State hater, a K-State detractor. I don't know what other words. Like, I call Jake KU hater LeBon. I don't know if any of you listening want me to be K-State hater Fulton. I'd try not to hate on K-State. K-State winning is good for business. I will say the same thing I always say. Them being good is what I want because it makes me happier because I like to talk about winners. I don't like to talk about losers. And yet I talk about the Royals all the time. But either way, we are giving away a pair of tickets. So again, caller number 5. We're taking your calls right now, 785-272-9429. Call in. You can be the winner of these pair of K-State tickets. We got a lot coming up for fun here coming up on Mic'd Up. Coming up at the bottom of this hour, though, after we take a short break, it's time to talk some Royals baseball. We got pitchers and catchers reporting. We have shots of pitchers throwing off mounds in Surprise, Arizona. It's great. It's fantastic. It makes me so happy. It's my favorite time of year. Is pitchers and catchers reporting. Now the football season over. We'll take a time out. We'll talk more Royals. Come up next on Mic'd Up. to ship up to Surprise, Arizona, as spring training is here. I cannot lie to any of you listening or watching on our YouTube live stream, Sports on 580 on YouTube. Please subscribe. This is my favorite time of year. It's like I'm a kid at Christmas. Baseball forever and will always be my favorite sport, even though it is run by a man trying to kill it and try and destroy it. And its popularity is waning, which does make me sad a little bit. And it's incredibly hard to watch the game that I love to watch. That being said, I will always love baseball. And so this time of year is my favorite time of year for when this game is resuming. The Royals are underway down in Surprise. Pitchers and catchers have reported. We have, speaking of which, just a little bit ago, we had a tweet sent out by Josh Vernier of Kansas City Radio, showing that Brady Singer is chatting with Zach Greinke and some of the coaches, and they're all, kind of working through some things right now. It's my favorite thing to see. This is the best time of year, especially with this new coaching staff. Hope springs eternal this time of year. You never know. The young pitchers are the key to the success of this Royals organization, not even just this year, but going forward. They need something out of these kids to be consistent and try and go forward. As of now, I'm going to remain optimistic. Whether that is stupid or silly, well, I will let you be the judge of that, and I ask you to please be nice. The Royals have made some moves as of late, though. They made the most recent news yesterday. I know Brendan and Deanne on 5E Sports Talk discussed this because this news broke after Jake and I went off the air. They have signed Franmil Reyes to a minor league contract with a non-roster invite to spring training. I absolutely love this move by JJ Piccolo and company to bring in Franmil Reyes. First off, in case any of you forgot who he was when he played for Cleveland and a little bit of Chicago, Franmil Reyes is a walking tank. He's 6'5", 265. Dude is a giant. Man is massive. But more importantly, Franmil Reyes has a lot of power. In 2019, between the San Diego Padres and the Cleveland Guardians, he hit 37 home runs. Only batted .249, which isn't ideal, but he hit 37 home runs. 2021, just 2 seasons ago, he hit 30 home runs with 85 RBI, did hit .254 that year. That is his season high in a full normal season. He did hit .275 with Cleveland in 2020 during the COVID year. But as we all know, nothing that happens in that COVID year counts. Sorry, Dodgers, you do not have a World Series title. You won it during the weirdest and silliest year of baseball ever. But last year, he cratered. Had career low in batting average, only batted .221, a .273 on base percentage, hit 14 home runs still. Didn't walk like he usually did. He's never really been a gigantic walks guy, but didn't walk well at all. And he struck out the most he's ever struck out in a single season ever. His chase rate went up. His whiff rate went up. Something went wrong in the process, enough that he was traded to the Chicago Cubs from the Cleveland Guardians. Now, with Chicago, he did hit .234 with 5 home runs in 48 games. But I like this. The Royals have shown with their new staff in place that they can develop hitters, that they can kind of refine an approach with hitters. This is a no-risk move. Worst thing that happens, Franmil Reyes doesn't have a bad spring. You just kind of let him go. He had the toils in the minors and you get rid of him. It cost you basically nothing. Like, nothing bad happens. The good is he shows out in spring training, hits some absolute tanks, and that's a right-handed DH option that you can maybe use to help crush lefties a little bit more. Like, he is the perfect guy the Royals should be taking a chance on. I love this move. It builds up my trust in JJ Piccolo. He broke it with the Jordan Lyles sign. I can't lie. JJ signed Jordan Lyles, and I kind of went into a bad place. But he has since signed Zach Greinke. He has signed Franmil Reyes. He's taken a few, he's made some great trades. It's all been built back. Michael A. Taylor traded, Alberto Mondesi trade. It's all been built back. So I thank you, JJ, for building back the trust in me. Obviously, a thing you care deeply about, JJ, is your trust in me, Fulton Caster, being had in you. But I wanted to get to this today and break this down a little bit. The Royals and Brady Singer, their arbitration case is wrapped up. Last year was a weird year because the arbitration cases were delayed because of the lockout. And so guys were finishing arbitration in season, which was really strange. This year, arbitration is going to happen during the spring and should all get wrapped up by April. I think there might be some tiny, maybe weird things in between there. For the most part, the show will be wrapped up April. Brady Singer and the Royals wrapped up today, essentially. I'm going to call it today. It probably wasn't specifically today, but we started getting all the news and stuff about it today. The Royals won the case. And so Brady Singer will make closer to about $2.9 million versus I think like the 3.1 or something like he was getting. The difference between the two deals was $375,000. The Royals took their best young pitcher to court for $375,000. A system in which during arbitration, because as a weirdo baseball nut that I am, I pay attention to this stuff. Arbitration is a process in which, in front of a judge, and more importantly, in front of your player, you have to tell him why you think he deserves to make less money. You have to stare at him and go, I think for X, Y, and Z reason, you need to make less money. Not great for building trust. Not great for building relationship. And that's why, first off, I think the arbitration system in general is very silly. I think baseball's entire free agency system is very silly. That's an entirely different conversation for an entirely different day. But arbitration should be your last resort. And with the season Brady had, the figure he was looking for at just over $3 million, I don't see why the Royals could not have just paid him an extra bit and not gone to arbitration. Now, I'm not an executive. I don't know their specific facts and figures. I don't know their budget breakdown. Maybe they really did need to save that near $400,000. I don't know. I'm not JJ Piccolo. I'm not the guys in his office. I'm not one of the, I don't do the salary for the Royals and their budget breakdown. You know, that's not me. I just think it's something you should have avoided. And then Annie Rogers covers the Royals for MLB.com, does some fantastic work, does Annie do. She put out a quote from Brady Singer this morning after his arbitration hearing happened earlier this week. And what were his thoughts on it? And here's one, as I get the quote pulled up here. Here's what Brady Singer said, and I quote, "Definitely a weird experience, but I'm thankful for the team I had with Excel, his agency company. And I'm thankful for the PA being behind me, Player Association. I think they did a phenomenal job. I think the arbitrator got it wrong. But it is what it is. It was a different experience. It's not a fun experience, but I think it's something that's extremely necessary as players for us to go fight for what we believe in. I think we can do a better job of going to hearings. I think the market has gone down in salary arbitration, but I think we can do better. Be better at not being scared of going to fight for what we believe in." I like reading that. Brady Singer is, in my opinion, always been a hard-to-read guy. Like, he's not Zach Greinke levels of just a dude that's very blunt, but also sometimes says weird things. Brady just is not a guy. He's a fiery competitor, but he doesn't speak a lot. He just doesn't. That reads to me as a guy who is definitely bummed he's making less money, which is understandable. This process cost him $400,000, which I get it. He's still a person making over $2 million this year, still nearly making $3 million, way more than any of us here make. So it's hard to compartmentalize that. But this is still a guy that his employer just told him, you should make less money, and now I'm going to find a way to make sure you make less money. Like, in a bubble, like, that is never a good thing to feel as an employee. And I get Brady being upset. I appreciate Brady being so candid of just, he's disappointed. You know, he thinks the arbiter got it wrong. That Brady should have won the case. Brady should have made his money. That his group and the PA and whatnot made their case. This is just, again, the reason why I hate arbitration. And I hated, like, and it also depends on who you're going through it with. The Royals need a star young pitcher from this group from 2018. Like, that is what their entire rebuild, that whole rebuild thing, everything else, it all hinged on the 2018 group of pitchers being good. Well, you finally got one of them to be good, and Brady Singer, who had a fantastic year last year. You know, he joined the rotation and was on fire pretty much all year. A couple of bumps in the road, but overall he did great. You know, finally used his changeup more. His sinker, two-seamer, whatever he wants to call that thing, 'cause it moves every which way, looked great. His slider was fantastic. Like, I just I hope the Royals did not screw themselves out of a potential long-term situation with Brady because they weren't looking at the long-term situation. And that's what I worry sometimes, especially with small market teams in arbitration, is you want to look at ways to save you some money this specific year. But I mean, Brady Singer's got to be one of the guys you want to get reach a long-term extension with before he gets to free agency. Maybe buy out a couple of free agent years. Well, he's going to have a hard time trusting you and maybe even, giving you a bit of a discount if this is what you're going to do to him. And that's my overall point with all this. It's a difficult situation, and I am a person who is always going to side with the worker. That's me as a person, my personal beliefs. I'm going to side with workers over corporations and owners anytime. It's just what I do. So I'm going to be on Brady's side here. I can kind of see where the Royals come from, but overall, this is just a risk I wouldn't have taken because reading that quote from Brady Singer, I think they've alienated one of their young stars a little bit. And also, like, what kind of message does that send to the other guys? Like, you should reward a player for a great year. And I don't know if Brady Singer got rewarded, but we'll see as things goes. I hope this doesn't become a great, overarching sticking point, for Brady to where, maybe it makes him consider not staying and not maybe trying to work out some sort of extension for the future. But overall, we'll see. We'll see what the Royals do. We'll see if they do anything, and we'll see how Brady Singer takes going through, surprise, and hopefully has another great year. Another big piece of Royals news came out today, earlier this morning. The winningest manager in Royals history is finally being elected to the Royals Hall of Fame. Ned Yost, the man, the myth, the legend, the guy that some people, when he started, loved to hate. And I'll be honest, I was one of those guys who might have been going for Ned's job before 2014. He will be inducted into the Royals Hall of Fame coming up on September 2nd. He's going to be the 27th inductee during an on-field ceremony prior to their September 2nd game against the Red Sox at Kauffman Stadium. And it makes me so happy that Ned is going to get to be here. Took the team to back-to-back World Series in 2014, 2015. Won the World Series in 2015, the first title in 30 years. He's the all-time leader in managerial wins with 746 wins. The first Royals manager to lead the team to consecutive World Series appearances. When he retired, he was 32nd all-time in games managed in MLB history. It's a great, it's a career that was kind of up and down. And I mean, you have to realize like that's just, I think, something we can all understand. Ned Yost's Royals career was very up and down because when it started, it wasn't great. There were issues with Ned Yost when he started in. There were some discussions on his managerial tactics and things he could do and what he wanted to do. And, he started, takes over in 2010, 55 and 72, but then 71 wins in 2011, 72 wins in 2012. And maybe we were all being too harsh with the way he was. But I mean, look at it. 86 wins in 2013, 89 wins 2014, 95 wins in 2015, 81 in 16, 80 in 2017. I think some of this is marred by him being at the helm for 18 and 19 when the team won 58 and 59 games respectively. I think that I think it might sour a little bit of the career. I could be wrong. I don't know. I will also just add this. If you have your thoughts on Ned Yost being inducted to the Royals Hall of Fame and just your memories of Ned Yost as manager of the Royals, please let me know on the Bear Tires text line 785-272-9429 or hit me up on the YouTube comment section of our live YouTube stream. Give me your thoughts on Ned Yost. Like, I know a lot of you out there because some of you have joined with me the roller coaster of this Royals season. I know some of you out there have memories of the Royals and care about this team almost as much as I do, and maybe more than I do. I don't know. I'm not going to judge and compare fandom levels here. I think that's a silly thing to do. We all love our teams in our own ways. But what do you think about Ned Yost and his career? Because, yeah, like, looking back on this, I think it was so much better than I think enough people would care to realize. There's a reason he's the all-time winningest manager in Royals history at 746 wins. I hate that he had to end his managerial career on such a bad note. That's how 18 and 19 went. The Royals pretty much went, they went all in. They went all in. And it burned them in 18 and 19 when that crop left after 2017 and you had to kind of start the rebuild. And then I remember when Ned Yost retired. And I was very bummed when Ned announced his retirement. I was very bummed, partly because I knew it was coming next and Mike Matheny was taking over. And Lord, did I know that was never going to work. And who knew? Who knew that I was correct? And I was one of many that was correct. And the Mike Matheny era never worked. Listen, I'm going to try to always forget and ignore Mike Matheny going forward. But that situation crashed and burned. And I'm just saying, we told you so. But yeah, like when Ned retired, it was a bummer. But I think it's nice that he's finally getting the honor of this situation. It's great that he's finally here. I would have liked him, because how the Royals Hall of Fame works, because thanks to a piece by Andy Rogers here announcing it, I understand how the Royals alumni situation works. They can't have been an active member of the Royals or any other organization for 3 years. He cannot have managed for 3 years. So we're kind of near the very beginning part of when he can done anything, but it's great and it makes me happy. And I'm glad that Ned is here. And I think it's a very well-deserved honor for Ned Yost. And there's a misconception, and it's a misconception a texter brings up here, and I want to attack this misconception. A text for the 75 says the Royals won despite Yost, not because of him. Texter, first off, thank you for interacting with us. Always appreciate people chiming into the show. I politely disagree with you, though, because I get it. Our memories of Ned Yost are the stubbornness, the decisions he made that made us all question it sometimes. One of the big ones, batting Alcides Escobar leadoff for so long that never seemed like it was ever working. But it did, though. Like, quirky things that on their surface seems wrong, they worked. Like, you don't win 86, 89, 95, 81, 80 in a 5-year stretch in Kansas City just because some good players. Like, yes, were you helped that Alex Gordon had turned his career around? It was all of a sudden a really good player. Of course you did. Did it help you at Eric Hosmer and Mike Moustakas, Lorenzo Cain, all come in and make some good plays? Of course you did. So let's remember that those guys' careers were not straight linear paths. That it took guys working with them and making it work and being patient with them. Remember, Mike Moustakas, before he ever became really good in Kansas City, had to be sent back down to the minors because he was struggling. But the Royals and Ned Yost stayed patient and believed they made it work. I get it. Managing in baseball is complicated because I think we often do not realize its importance. But Jake and I have discussed this a bunch. A big part of being a manager is managing the clubhouse. Look at Mike Matheny. The biggest thing that anyone would ever say about Mike Matheny, the vibes in that clubhouse were horrendous. Not just because of the losing, but because he could not manage the energy properly. Think back to a consistency about Ned Yost. Did it help that they were winning? Of course. But even during tough stretches, that team stayed together. They had positive energy, and the vibes, to call them, were excellent. That's the sign of a good manager, is managing people. So I'm not going to sit here and think all of you should believe that Ned was great. I get there's going to be detractors to this. I get that some people are going to have their negative memories of Ned Yost, and that is going to sour some things. And that's what bums me. That's why I'm so bummed that his last 2 years were really bad years, were 100-loss years, because I think it colors too much of what happened. I do. Did Ned benefit from having one of the most talented Royals rosters they had in quite some time? Of course he did. Any manager is going to. But he still had to set the lineups. He still had to figure out what to do. And as we've always said, the biggest part is managing the clubhouse, managing those egos. And he did it. He took a group of young kids and got them ready and had them cohesive enough to go win a championship and figure out the way it should be done. That team, in my opinion, and maybe I'm colored from viewing this, nearly 8 years later, that 2015 team had more expectations than any Royals team had in a while. When they went to the World Series in 2014, came 90 feet away from tying it in Game 7 before Madison Bumgarner happened, because God, he was good. Y'all can get mad at Joe Buck all you want. Madison Bumgarner deserved all the respect he was getting, all the flowers he was getting that entire 2014 World Series. Like, they had pressure in 2015. Think about that 2015 postseason run. Their backs were against the wall a couple times. Back was really against the wall against Houston. Never lost faith. Always kept going. The ship was always steady. The line kept moving. That's what I hope all of you remember about Ned Yost. Were there some bad times? Sure. Were there some things he did that were annoying? Sure. Yosted, #Yosted, became a thing amongst the Royals Twitter community. Like, I get it. I do. I understand anyone's points, anyone's reservations, anyone's thoughts on Ned Yost that aren't glowingly positive. Not all my memories about him are positive. But overall, he's your winningest manager in franchise history. He helped win you a World Series, and he took you to another when you for damn sure shouldn't have been there. That 2014 team had no business being in the World Series. But through the guys playing well and Ned Yost steering the ship, they got on the heater of all heaters, won one of the greatest wildcard games in MLB history, and nearly won a championship a year before they should have been there. That's what you should remember about Ned Yost's tenure with the Royals. It was a great time. Those were so many years in a row that I was a happy, happy man. And I hope it comes back at some point. Maybe Matt Quatraro could bring us back to that point. But Ned Yost is a Royals Hall of Famer. He'll be inducted on September 2nd. And I could not be happier for Ned Yost. A very, very, very well-deserving honor. They'll do it here for the noon hour of Mic'd Up. Coming up at the 1 o'clock hour, we'll look at the Chiefs' offseason narratives. Hour number 2 of Mic'd Up here on 580 WIBW. Fulton Cast here with you for hour number 2. As we roll on here on a more solo edition, not completely solo because I got Kyle helping me out, but more than usual solo edition of Mic'd Up. Want to congrats Joel to winning the K-State Iowa State tickets. Don't despair if you didn't win these tickets. We'll have more tickets for K-State to try and give away as they wrap up their season. And then we just have different giveaways all throughout the year. Ladies and gentlemen, Royal season's beginning, which means we're about to have some Royal State giveaways. And I get it. The team probably going to be bad. Hopefully we're all wrong here and they're going to be better than we think. But even if they're bad, a day at Kauffman Stadium is still enjoyable. Like, still a fun day, especially if you're a family with some kids. Fun to bring them out there. So we got you covered. We got you covered if you're still wanting to get some winnings here for Mic'd Up with Jake and Fulton. Coming up in this 1 o'clock hour, we're going to look at the Chiefs offseason narrative. There's been some talks about some comments that Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes made at the parade yesterday that seemed to have rubbed some people the wrong way. And y'all know me, I try to stay out of this stuff, but I think we need to address some things. But everyone loves the list in honor of Ned Yost being inducted into the Royals Hall of Fame and his announcement being inducted being today. We're going to do best, or more importantly, just favorite players of the Ned Yost era of the Kansas City Royals. So basically 2010 to 2019. There's pretty much a crop of about 10 to 12 that fit the bill of it for sure best. So I'll see what Kyle and I come up with, but we're going to go with the best players from the Ned Yost era. You can, of course, give your thoughts, as always, as well. And then the bottom of this hour, David Lesky of Inside the Crown is going to join me as we're going to chat some Royals baseball, really get into it. A Royals-heavy hour, just the way I like it, here on Mic'd Up. You can join the conversation, as always, on our Big O Tires text line, 785-272-9429, or jump in the comments of our YouTube live feed. You can go to youtube.com, Sports on 580 is the YouTube channel. Give us a subscribe if you have not. You can jump in and comment on the show as well. Speaking of comments, Vance with a good one. Are the Royals mathematically eliminated from the playoffs yet? Not yet, Vance, and that's why we're hopeful. They're in it. Every year is beautiful because, listen, every year is great because technically everyone has a chance. Now, is that chance a realistic one? Not really. But is it one I'm going to ride until the wheels fall off? You bet your butt I will. I'm going to believe in this team until they start annoying me, which, let's be real, is going to be like the second week of April. And memes are going to be made of me, and there's going to be another meme made of me, and the Royal Caster, I think, is what we went with. I think that's what we went with, which I thought Fuller Coaster was better, but I don't get to make the decisions around here. Either way, that meme still lives. That meme, it's still saved on my phone. What great Photoshop work that was. Might need to get that posted up again on the website just to remind everybody that it's that time of year yet again. Also, maybe we need to update the meme a little bit. Who knows? There were some older pictures being used to that, which was just, it was hilarious. Great time of year. But to kick off this hour of Mic'd Up here on 580 WIBW, let's talk narratives. And if any of you know me, I'm not big on the narratives of people and trying to buy into arguments on the internet and arguments on the airwaves. You know me, because we'll bring ourselves, like arguments about, legacy and hot takes and stuff like that. Like, I try to stay out of that. I really do. As I recommend to all of you, just don't listen. Turn your brains off. It's not a time to engage with that stuff. But then SB Nation just had to make me annoyed. And people in their comment section just had to make me annoyed. So, SB Nation, a sports blog area, their Twitter account literally says the S stands for sports and the B stands for blogs. One of their writers put out a blog today that said the Chiefs are, and the headline was, the Chiefs are also the Super Bowl champions of gaslighting. And the article was essentially just based on the comments of Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce saying that nobody picked them to win. and that nobody believed in them to win a championship. That, no one thought they were going to be good. Now, as I've said many times, I think saying nobody is a bit strong. The Chiefs were by a decent amount of people still picked to finish with a winning record. There are people that picked them to win the AFC West still. There's some, there's usually a decently positive view of the Chiefs. However, in response to this article by SB Nation and some of the people in their comments section, there were a decent chunk of people who were raising comments and questions and whatnot about if the Chiefs were going to be able to do what they usually do. Like, now were some of these people hot take artists like Bart Scott and Skip Bayless that you should never listen to ever? Yes, those people do not deserve the time of day, and they're morons. And they're also worse words that I would like to say, but due to FCC regulations, I can't say. But there'd be like, Bart Scott's saying the Chiefs were going to miss the playoffs and finish with a losing record. That's stupid. That's asinine. And we all knew not to listen to it. Skip Bayless saying the same type of stuff. We knew not to listen to it. But there was, during this offseason, on numerous national media publications and circulations and shows, questions about will the Chiefs take a step back, and more importantly, that they will, a confirmed will, not a maybe and amusing, a they 100% will, we believe in it, will take a step back without Tyreek Hill. There were discussions about Mahomes taking a step back without Tyreek Hill. How will he play without his best weapon? I could go on and on and on, and I can find you the audio of all this because Jake and I spent an entire summer talking about it. Like, Jake and I's entire summer this year was discussing and pointing out the silliness of some of these conversations. So for SB Nation, for one of their blog writers to say, oh, everyone believes, because, within their little blog post, they discuss and point out, oh, the Chiefs were third in preseason odds to win the Super Bowl. Sure they were. Everyone still thought it was going to be the Bills. The Chiefs were number 4 in ESPN's preseason power rankings. Sure, in that, numerous people, though, who are employed by ESPN spouted the same stupid crap about how the Chiefs would take a step back without Tyreek Hill. Sports Illustrated said they're going to finish 11-6. Sure, still plenty of people near that publication trying to say the Chiefs would take a step back. The Ringer said the Chiefs would win the AFC West. All right, that's one publication out of several that picked either the Chargers or the Broncos. Some even picked the Raiders, which was absolutely crazy. He points out that SB Nation said the Chiefs would win the AFC West, and they would. Sure. Like, were there pockets where people still believed in the Chiefs? Of course there were. That's why I say, if you want to pick on Travis and Patrick for saying nobody, we can pick on that. We can nitpick that. Because there wasn't nobody. There were some that still did. But there was a prevailing and consistent message that the Chiefs would take a step back. There were plenty that are picking the Bills to win the Super Bowl. The Bills were your immediate darlings to win the Super Bowl. And I think with Von Miller, they would have had a better chance, but also some other things went wrong and they didn't. Happens. When the Chiefs and when the Chiefs and Bengals went at it, we're talking less than a month ago, ladies and gentlemen. Less than a month ago. Dan Orlovsky invented the term quarterbacking so he could say Joe Burrow was better than Patrick Mahomes at something. We had not even 2 weeks ago, a week ago, we had a Philadelphia sports writer who said if you were building a prototypical quarterback, executives would build Jalen Hurts over Patrick Mahomes. Like, for the 75, a great point. Everyone on the Fox broadcast picked Philly. Like, I'm more upset than I need to be about this, and I truly, I try to water off the duck's back with this stuff because it is pointless to get upset about it. It is. I'm saying, like, my emotions I'm feeling right now, pointless. But it's frustrating when, in hindsight, people love to go and they love to be like, oh, these guys say no one was ever, they love to go, nobody picked them. Oh, it's balderdash. Of course, everyone picked them. Of course they were. They were still a favorite. Because in hindsight, we think about that stuff and it sounds silly. But y'all, the Chiefs openly said that they were retooling. That's their word, retooling, not rebuilding. People discussed whether wide receivers mesh. There were plenty of people who thought the Broncos or the Chargers would win the AFC West, with a few nut jobs picking the Raiders because that was really stupid. Like, we talk about the time. The Chargers are the media darlings every offseason cycle of them being picked to win the AFC West. That's been multiple years running. So, do I agree with you, SB Nation writer, that saying nobody's a bit strong? Sure, of course. Nobody's always a bit strong in any context. It's wrong often to say nobody believes in you, because there's someone out there who does. There's someone out there who believes in damn near everything. But is it correct for these Chiefs players to believe that there were some people who were doubting them? Yes. And athletes are going, no matter how small the voice is, the athletes are going to want to put a chip on their shoulder. It's what they do. Julian Edelman for the Patriots was doing that when they were still their dynasty. And that was even stupider than this. Like, athletes are going to do it. It's just what they do. So yeah, Travis Kelce's going to say no one believed in him and take shots at the haters, because they existed. And to the Chiefs and to these athletes, their voices are amplified. So if you want to be one of the ones that wants to be all mad about what Travis Kelce says and, try and say that, the Chiefs should have been the favorites, and of course people believed in them, and say no one believed in this crap, and they're just, and use the term gaslighting, which we're going that far. We're really calling it that. You need to learn what words actually are. Like, there's a balance point. Jake and I was talking about nuance, and there is. If you want to critique Travis Kelce because he said nobody, sure. Travis Kelce was also blitzed out of his mind yesterday. You can't hold what Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes said yesterday. You cannot hold them against them, because neither of them knew where they were. Like, there's a great video. Travis Kelce, someone threw him a shooter of something up to him, and that man chugged it in like 2 seconds flat. Like, okay, cool. A drunk athlete said no one believed in them. Wow, I can't believe he said that. Of course he did. Of course he did. Wow, Patrick Mahomes, while he's living in the Andromeda galaxy a couple light years away, says, oh, I don't know what a rebuilding year is. This is our rebuilding year. Yes, they're going to say that. Because there were people who did not think they would win. The Eagles were the favorite to win the Super Bowl in the game. Look at Vegas. It wasn't a big number. The Chiefs were dogs. Like, we blow this stuff out of proportion, and more importantly, this stuff always comes off and this is where I go to, Chiefs fans, get used to this. You are the evil empire now. You are the next evil dynasty. Chiefs fans, in the media, I'm not saying by success. Definitely not saying by success. But as far as media narrative goes, you're the Patriots now. That's what you are. You're the team everyone's going to love to hate. You're the team that no one wants to see win. You're the team people are going to try and poke holes in. And you're the team that when you win, people are going to find ways to take you down, with either conspiracy theories about the game being rigged or ways that your path was easier. Get used to it. I've been prepared for it. Y'all have heard me say it numerous times. Embrace being the heel. Embrace being the hated one. Because that's what you're going to be. You are going to be the most hated fan base and the most hated team for more than a few years now. It's just what it's going to be. Because this is what happens to consistent winners. The shine has rubbed off the Chiefs. The media darlings, the scrappy underdog, that's rubbed off, gang. That is fully 100% gone. That is gonzo. Understand that. And it is not coming back. So do what I do. Embrace it. Just laugh. Or more importantly, do the other part that I think is even more important. Just ignore it. Just look at it, scoff, and move on. Because it's silly. But and you know me, I don't like to engage with it, but I had to engage with it today. Because I've seen a bunch of it, and it's just so frustrating. because it's revisionist to act like the Chiefs were this big favorite all offseason. They weren't. Without Tyreek Hill, with him being gone, numerous people used that as an excuse to say the Chiefs were taking a step back. And all they did was have one of their best offensive years under Mahomes. Patrick had a career high in passing yards and led the league. He led the league in touchdown passes, and Mahomes won his second MVP. That's what he does without Tyreek Hill. That's what he does with a receiver core of Juju Smith-Schuster, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, a banged-up McCall Hardman, Kadarius Toney, and Sky Moore. That's what he does. Like, this is what they do with a defense that's led by rookies mainly. It's what they do. Like, the Chiefs are in just a different stratosphere at this point, and they'll continue to be in it. I talked to Jake about this yesterday. I asked him, do you think the Chiefs should be the Super Bowl favorite every year going forward under Mahomes? And I think they will be. I think they rightfully should be. Because I think they've proved, especially under Mahomes and Reed, you cannot count this team out. So yes, SB Nation blogger, saying nobody is a bit strong. You made some great points of people that thought the Chiefs would do good. You even found a couple of people that said the Chiefs would win the West. Good job. I can also find numerous examples of people, and yes, some of them silly morons, saying the Chiefs wouldn't win the West. A couple that said they would miss the playoffs. Some that said they would not win the Super Bowl, that there was no chance. There were some that said Mahomes would be exposed, that he doesn't have Tyreek Hill. We have the receipts. We do. But there's no sense in going through them. I'm just going to point out, your argument is silly. It's incredibly flawed. And the Chiefs are Bowl champions, and some of y'all can't handle that. But my advice to the Chiefs Kingdom, as always, enjoy it. Enjoy being world champions above all else, and enjoy being the villain for once. They hate you because you're winning. That's why. It is truly a case of you're being hated because you're far too successful. We're going to take a break here on Mic'd Up. Coming next, everyone loves to list best players of the Ned Yost era for the Royals. That'll be coming up next here on Mic'd Up. Time for Everyone Loves the List here on Mic'd Up, and I'm bringing my good man, Kyle Manthe, to help me out with the list today. Kyle, today's list, top players of the Ned Yost era. I do not think there's a correct top 4 to this list. I think it depends on what you weight and what you value. But Kyle, who is your number 4 on your list of top players of the Ned Yost era?
Number 4, I'm going to put Alex Gordon number 4. I'm going to value the longevity a little more. His peak wasn't as high as some of the other guys, but he was just there so long, and the defense was so good. I gotta have him at number 4.
I've said this many times before. Alex Gordon is my favorite Royal of all time. That will never change. I might love a lot of the new guys. That will never change. Alex Gordon is forever my favorite Royal of all time, and he's my number 4 as well. Only 4 with my love for him because I think there are players who were better on the field consistently in higher peaks. But Alex Gordon was, fantastic, wonderful, excellent. So I do put Alex Gordon at my number 4 as well.
Number 3, another longevity guy. I'll put Salvador Perez at number 3. He wasn't quite maybe as good as he was the last few years when Ned Yost was there and during like the championship run, but he's been there the whole time. The defense again was really good, and he's, for a catcher, he's a good hitter. So I have him number 3.
I think that's a good spot to put Salvi. Salvi is very important with how well he played and some of the things he did and how well he did. He's my number 3 as well. So far, we're 2 for 2 on batching this up. But I put Perez there because I think that, especially with the run, the early part of the run, he's one of the biggest hits in Royals history with that wild card game hit as well. But Sal was fantastic. He was so useful to it. Perez is my number 3.
Number 2, I'm putting Lorenzo Cain. The best argument for him is that in the 2015 year, just looking at wins above replacement, he was at 7 wins above replacement that year. Next highest on the roster was, I think, 4.6, just way above everyone else.
My easy yard for Lorenzo Cain is my number 2 as well. He nearly won an MVP. Simple as that. Lorenzo Cain, number 2 as well. I think we might go 4 for 4 here. Kyle, who's your number 1?
It's got to be Wade Davis. He was the best reliever in baseball for 3 years in a row.
Somehow, Kyle and I went a perfect 4 for 4 on this list together. Wade Davis is my number 1 as well. There is a lot of good options. If anyone else, let us know in the YouTube live comments as well. And, of course, the Video Terrorist text on 785-272-9429. A perfect 4 for 4 copy of the list. Absolutely hilarious. We're going to take a timeout. When we come back, David Lesky of Answer the Crown will join us. Up here on 580 WIBW. Fulton Caster here with you on this edition of the program. Thank you all for your comments being sent in about you think the best rows were of the Ned Yost era. We got some thoughts, some general consensus on Alex Gordon, Lorenzo Cain, Salvador Perez. All those were there. Vance brings up your Donna Ventura. Vance, I will not yell at you. I think you actually are correct of your Donna and the way he's been the way he played. And always, of course, rest in peace to our great king, your Donna Ventura. They made a 675 with, in no particular order, we got Davis, Herrera, Hosmer, Moose, Kane, Perez, Alcides Escobar. Love seeing Esky get some love. Greg Collins, Zach Greinke, Al Gordon, a bunch of great guys here to play for the Royals. And speaking of the Royals, you know it's baseball season because I got to bring in my good friend David Lesky, covers the Royals for Inside the Crown. Fantastic newsletter. Google it, Inside the Crown. You'll find it. Subscribe. It's great stuff. Everything Dave does is, absolutely fantastic in every sense of the word. Dave, baseball is back, my friend. How does it feel to be talking baseball here in the month of February?
It is amazing. You look out the window and there's little snowflakes. Maybe they stopped, but either way, it warms the heart. And it's, there's something very special. I know there's not like a full overlap. I know not every Royals fan is a Chiefs fan, but to be able to go to February, what was it, 12th was Sunday, I guess? Yeah. And, have the Chiefs season go to then, and then the parade yesterday, the day pitchers and catchers report, it's perfect. There's just no downtime, and it's amazing.
I'm fully with you. I don't think there's a single bit of a way we can try and move through this. It's great. It's fantastic. My favorite time of the year. Just while we're on the subject a little bit here, our list today was our favorite, or I guess best, Royals players of the Ned Yost era, in honor of Ned Yost being announced he's going to be inducted into the Royals Hall of Fame here. You don't have to give me honestly, like, we went top 4. If you got 4, give it to me. It can be top 2, whatever you got. Who do you think are some of the best players when you think back on it from the Ned Yost era with the Royals?
Oh, it's Lorenzo Cain is probably top 2 with Alex Gordon. I would listen to arguments either way. I think Gordon's struggles from 2016 on, after he signed the contract, to me, don't take him out of the top spot, but I don't have a problem with it if it takes him out of the top spot for you. But it's Cain and Gordon 1-2 in some order. And then it's probably Wade Davis. And gosh, a fourth one. I could go 12 deep. Obviously, they won a championship. But I think probably Eric Hosmer. I think you can make an argument for Ventura. You can make an argument for Duffy, for James Shields, even though it was only 2 years. A lot of guys. I'm stupid. Salvador Perez. Forget Eric Hosmer. Salvador Perez is top 3 with Gordon and Cain. And then you got Wade Davis. There we go. There's my top 4.
I had the same thought with Hosmer. I almost put him on my list, and I put him Perez over him because I almost completely forgot Perez as well here, Dave. Going, though, into the actual baseball on the field. We'll talk about this iteration, the 2023 version of the Kansas City Royals. I'm going to start with Brady Singer specifically, and then we might, branch off from there. He made some comments about his arbitration case here earlier today about how he was kind of disappointed with how some of the things went and different things like that. Thinking on it, first off, how do you feel about how the Royals went to arbitration with their best young pitchers so far? They went to arbitration with them. And then just, if you saw his comments, what'd you make of them? And just what do you think this arbitration thing could just affect Singer's mindset going into this year?
Yeah, so I actually hadn't seen his comments yet, which may change some things. I think the arbitration process in general, I think is really short-sighted on most teams. I saw that Corbin Burns was really upset. I think that I was just right before we started talking, I was listening to what he said about it and how he heard some things he didn't want to hear. And I think from what I understand, the Royals handle their arbitration a little bit differently than that, at the very least. I think that they're a little bit warmer. Maybe maybe less cold is the right way to put that rather than warmer. For an amount that small, the fact that they ended up going to arbitration is just silly to me, but they did. From what I understand, they negotiated up to the last minute. They didn't reach a deal. They're still talking about a long-term deal. It's just the date came, and they don't get to decide when the arbitration hearing is. If the date comes, they have to go to that hearing, and they have to fight over $375,000 in this case, which is, I believe, I did the math and I deleted the spreadsheet by accident, but it was like the sixth smallest difference percentage-wise between the two salaries that the player asked for and the team offered. So just seems a little short-sighted to me. I also think it's part of the game. Shouldn't be, but it is. people tend to get over it. I think that if Brady Singer was disappointed, he was probably disappointed in the result. And I think that there's a pretty easy way to get that fixed, and it's just come to a long-term deal, which they're still talking about. From my understanding, they're still talking about getting him signed up for at least his arbitration years and hopefully beyond. But yeah, short-sighted, but it's one of the things. It just kind of is what it is.
I'm fully with you on the idea of arbitration being kind of short-sighted. I think not enough teams kind of view it as what it could affect for some long-term potential. But who knows? Maybe Singer will get that long-term extension. And I would love to see it. I know you would love to see it to try and keep him around with how well he played. Looking at these young pitchers, new pitching staff in place. Brian Sweeney and company are here. Even new manager in place. All this new stuff. It's around an idea of we talk about hope springs eternal this time of year. Thinking of these young pitchers, looking at this, just what is your just general, I guess, vibe is the word I will use. Just what's your general feel for some of these young guys going in here, and what hope might you have for some of these young guys under this new pitching staff that's going to
be? I think I'm curious more than anything. We don't know anything, which is really fun, in a lot of ways, because coming into last season, I remember we talked about this that. We knew how an offseason was going to go under Dayton Moore. We knew maybe we get the player wrong. We but we knew what they'd go after. We knew the type of player they'd sign, all that. And then J.J. Piccolo is the general manager instead of Dayton Moore. And we don't really know, but we also don't know if it's any different because Dayton Moore is still there. Well, now it's all changed. Now it's all different. Dayton Moore is gone. It was 100% a J.J. offseason. Went out, got new manager, new pitching coach, new pitching staff on the coaching staff. And now we're kind of in that spot where we don't know. We don't know what it's going to be like. I think there's a lot of hope. There's a lot of hope that Brian Sweeney, Zach Bove, Mitch Stetter now at the big league level, that they can turn some of these young arms, Daniel Lynch, Jonathan Heasley, Chris Bubich, Max Castillo, Jackson Coar, Angel Zerpa. I mean, a bunch of all these guys who some we've been talking about for a few months, like Castillo, who they just got from Airfield in August. And some we've been talking about for a while. They can turn those guys into legitimate big league starters, and we just don't know. we just don't know. I think that it's pretty clear to anyone who has watched any of these guys pitch that there's talent. I don't think you can watch a Daniel Lynch start and see his slider and think, nah, that guy's not a big leaguer. But I also don't think you can watch a Daniel Lynch start and not be disappointed that his fastball is too straight. And Chris Bubich can't control the ball, and sometimes he throws 89, sometimes it's 94. Jonathan Heasley is, it seems middling. All this stuff, you see the highlights, you see the lowlights. The question is, these guys they brought in, Brian Sweeney, Zach Bove, again, Mitch Stetter from the minors, can they figure out how to reach the potential that we see when we see the highlights? And that's the part we just don't know yet. It'll be really, really interesting. And I think, to me, that's the biggest story of 2023, assuming something crazy doesn't happen, like them actually contending. That's the biggest story, is to see how these young pitchers progress and to see what they need to do, because I believe they are planning, maybe hoping to plan to win in 2024. I don't know how feasible that is if they don't get one or two of the young guys to a 2-3 type starter status. They have Brady Singer. They need at least one more, probably two more, honestly, because they're not going to be able to go out in free agency and sign whoever the biggest free agents are next year. I looked at it at one point. I blanked on who's coming up next season, but they're going to need to get these guys, a couple of them, to a status where they can count on them to be 30 start a year guys who will give the Royals a chance to win 90% of the time. That's the biggest story of the season. And we're going to start seeing it now, really. I mean, they play their first game a week from tomorrow. It'll be really interesting. I'm really curious. I'm hopeful because I love everything I've heard from people about Brian Sweeney, about Zach Bove. I've loved what I've heard from young Royals pitching who talk about the changes in such a positive way. Also makes me angry that they took so long to make these changes, but that's another story. Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. And like I said, the biggest story of the season to me.
I'm with you. I think the young pitching truly is the biggest story of this season. And speaking of that, we're going to take, with this question, I'm going to take Daniel Lynch and Chris Bubich out of the equation. They are not an allowable answer to this because I want us to go a little bit deeper here. Of the young pitchers not named Lynch or Bubich, who do you think has the best chance if their potential could be unlocked by this new coaching staff? Who do you think has the best chance to have a really surprising, big wow season for the Royals this year outside of Lynch or Bubich? Because I think they're the two with the most likely chance to succeed if you unlock their potential. So outside of those two, who do you think could be kind of a wow candidate if this new coaching staff can get to them?
I'm going to give you two answers, and I'll explain why in a second. But my gut reaction, if you had asked me that 2 or 3 weeks ago, Jonathan Heasley, because I think there's something more inside that can be unlocked. I think that there is a refinement of his pitch mix. It's hard to say. These particular coaches are really good at, a way to utilize his fastball in such a way that it's actually more effective. I think that there's a lot about Jonathan Heasley. There's not an ace in there, I don't think. But you could find a legitimate middle of the rotation starter who with his stuff and ability could have years where he's a number 2. Okay, that's my answer that I would have given you 3 weeks ago. I've been talking to people. I'm trying to make a bigger effort to talk to people a lot smarter than me, because there are a lot of people a lot smarter than me. So they can give great information. And I have had at least 4 people unprompted tell me that Jackson Kowar is going to have a huge year. And you watch him and you go, I don't know. I mean, I need to see it to believe it. Honestly, I cannot just get on board with, well, Jackson Kowar of the 11 career ERA or whatever it is going to have a big season. I just can't get there without seeing it a little bit first. But basically everybody I talk to is like, yeah, Kowar, this is the staff for Kowar. They're going to figure him out. That changeup is going to be lethal. They're going to get his fastball workable. Whatever breaking ball he ends up using is going to be really good. That's what these guys do. And I mean, I'm optimistic on that. I'm very cautious, but I'm optimistic there. So those are my 2 answers. The reality is, if I had to pick one of the 2, it's Kowar, because he's the guy who could be a number 1. He's the guy with the stuff. I mean, you throw 97 plus with that changeup, you can get playoff lineups out with that. Heasley's going to be the guy that puts up a 3.80 ERA in a good season, over 200 innings. 100, well, probably not 200 anymore. That's not the way the game works. But 175 innings, whatever that is. Kowar is the guy who, if everything clicks, you look up and he's 3rd in the Cy Young vote. Again, it's hard to see it. It's hard for me to get there, but he's the name I keep hearing.
I've read some of your stuff where the Kowar name has come up, and I'm on the same level of you of like, if he does put it all together, I think he could be that, but I'm just like you have, until I see it, that's when I'll believe it. David Lesky is our guest, covers the Royals, writes a great newsletter about the Royals of Inside the Crown. Just Google it. You'll find it on Substack. It is great stuff. I cannot recommend it to any of you listeners out there more than enough. Give it a shot. Some great stuff by Dave. You can also follow Dave on Twitter at DBLesky. All right, Dave, we're going to move to the hitting side here. And even though I just moved to the hitting side, I have a defensive question, though, for you. Bobby Witt Jr. in the shortstop situation. I've been trying to wrap my head around this because I think just put him at 3rd and let's move on with this thing. Do you think this is a Bobby Witt Jr. led thing of he wants to play short? Or do you think the Royals are trying to really find something here where they think total overall value is maximized if Bobby plays shortstop?
I think the answer is both, which is interesting. So it's hard to watch Bobby Witt Jr. and not think that and think that guy can't play shortstop, because he's fast. He's got theoretically should have good range. His feet seem quick. He's got a good arm. Everything about his toolbox should allow him to play shortstop, right? But for whatever reason, the struggles were huge in 2022. Maybe it was the game was a little too quick for him, quicker than he expected. Maybe not too quick. That's probably the wrong way to put it. Whatever it was surprising. And I'd heard some questions in the minors. Nothing to suggest it would be as bad as it was for him in 2021. And when you look at the system, you've got Michael Garcia, and you think, okay, just put Garcia at short and Witt at third and be done. Then you don't have to worry about Hunter Dozier at third base, all this stuff. So I get it. I think there are two things at play. I think Bobby Witt likes to play shortstop, and the Royals want to keep him around for a long, long time. Moving him to third when you've already basically admitted this is not a season you can win in probably doesn't sit well with him. We can argue if they should be acquiescing to player concerns all day. I don't know the answer. I could see both sides, but it probably doesn't sit great with him. But they also hired Jose Alguacil. I believe that's how you say his name. He was with the Nationals, the Giants before that. He has a great reputation as a defensive infield coach. I think that the Royals believe they've figured out some things that Witt was doing wrong. Witt's figured out some things. He's a hard worker. He's one of those guys you should never bet against because he will take what went wrong and just hammer it into the ground to get rid of it. Regardless, I think that they believe his best value is at shortstop. And if that's what he wants, it kind of works out this season to handle. So, I think that's why they're doing it. I also think there's a mindset of, hey, look, you want to play shortstop. We want you to play shortstop. We still don't think you can do it. We're going to put you there and basically prove to you that you can't. And if you can, good for us. If you can't, you'll have seen it now, and you can't argue with moving to third base. And so I think that's a big part of it. That's another big story, though. That's a really big story for at least the first part of 2023, because I brought up Michael Garcia. He's close. I talked to somebody a few weeks ago who said he's Tim Anderson with plate discipline, and that's kind of scary. That's a good player. So we'll see if that works out for the Royals on the Garcia front. But they're going to have to either decide that Witt can or can't play shortstop, and once they make that decision, I think he's got to move for good if they don't think he can. I don't think you can keep shifting him back and forth.
I'm with you. I think a consistent spot is better, and it's kind of the key to all of this. All right, Dave, my final two questions for you, my two for the road. All right, as far as these young hitters go and a lot of these young players, who do you think amongst the young guys and some of these unsung guys, who do you think is going to be the biggest surprise player at the plate for the Royals this year?
Oh, that's a good one. I thought you were going to say the best, and I had Vinny Pasquantino locked and loaded.
I mean, that's too easy then, man. It's too easy.
It is. You're right. It's too easy. I think that there's two guys who come to mind. The first is Michael Massey. I think that his batted ball profile looks pretty good. I think it'll look better. He's got to win the job first, but I think he's a guy who I think could end up being really good for this team. The other one, people will argue with this all day. I'm not done with Kyle Isbell. A lot of people
with you, man.
Yeah, I mean, he's just a guy. He hit well in 2021. I don't know what happened in 2022. Maybe I should dig into it. I feel like he got called out looking a lot on pitches outside the strike zone early, and then the approach changed. And I don't know. I could get convinced he's not a hitter after this season, but I don't know. I feel like there's a 280, 340, 430 season in him, which with his defense is plenty.
I've often called myself the number one member of the Kyle Isbell fan club, so I'm right there with you on Kyle Isbell. My final question for you, Dave, I have to ask it. We're early on here. How many wins do you think the Royals get this year?
Oh, I haven't gotten there yet. I go through a big process for this. If I had to say a number, I'd probably put them at 72 wins. I think they're 72 and 90. I reserve the right to change that though.
Oh, fully. We have all the way until March 30th, I think, to really lock in final win total projections. Dave, thank you so much for joining us, my friend. Enjoy spring training just like I do, and hopefully the Royals surprise us all and give us a more fun season than we expect this year.
Wouldn't that be great? That'd be awesome.
All right, David Lesky joining us from Inside the Crown. We'll take a timeout. Coming next, 2 o'clock hour of Mic'd Up. Hour of the program. Fulton Caster here with you, riding solo for the rest of this show. Jake, of course, is on his way to Jeff City, Missouri, as Washburn is taking on the Lincoln Blue Tigers this evening. You can hear that game coming up with Jake's call on our sister station, Country 1069. We got a lot of great stuff coming up here in the 2 o'clock hour. We got You Did What. We're going to take a look at the Chiefs and their offseason moves. And speaking of the Chiefs and their eventual offseason moves that are coming, we are joined right now by Jesse Newell. He covers the Kansas City Chiefs for the Kansas City Star. You can follow Jesse on Twitter at Jesse Newell. And Jesse, I'll start with this. First things first, were you at the parade yesterday? And if you were, how cold was
it? I actually was helping cover the parade, but the best place to watch it when you're trying to get what the guys are saying on the elevated stage is at home watching on TV. So I actually stayed home. It wasn't cold in my living room, but it obviously looked like a lot of fun for the people out there, and the guys able to let loose a little bit. You know, this whole season, it's a grind. You know, you go and you know that you can't stray too far from the path if you wanted to go out there and win games and win a Super Bowl. But those guys definitely let loose and had a lot of fun, and obviously Kansas City was celebrating with them.
I'm fully with you that the better way to hear what they're saying is at home. We aired the Royals rally live here on 580 WWW yesterday. Was very interesting to see Patrick Mahomes not existing in this universe and just being in the Andromeda Galaxy for the entire Chiefs rally. And then Travis Kelce grabbed a live mic. And were you like me? I know, obviously, you sitting at home weren't worried about a dump button for profanity like I was. But were you just anticipating once Travis Kelce got the mic that something absolutely crazy was about to be said out of his mouth?
Yeah, you always wonder. You know, now on his podcast, New Heights with his brother, he's able to say whatever he wants because they just put the, expletive little label on there.
One way to do it.
Good. And I also think after the AFC Championship game, you saw the fear in Jim Nance's eyes when Travis Kelce grabbed the mic from him because he's thinking, oh, no. You know, once Travis Kelce says whatever he's going to say and it's inappropriate, it's going to come back on me for handing him the mic. So, yeah, there's always that fear in that moment, but it seems like Travis keeps it somewhat close to what he should in these sorts of things. I know that with some of the I don't know what I want to call this, some of the imbibing that was taking place, that maybe the lips get a little bit looser on a day like yesterday, but he mostly kept together, I think. And again, the Chiefs were letting loose, and that's what you expect from a parade and a rally.
Yeah, that is the ultimate thing that they have earned, is they won a championship, therefore they can kind of chill out and kind of do whatever they want to do to wrap up that rally there. Let's move to that Super Bowl victory there, Jesse. Happened on Sunday night down in Glendale, Arizona. Chiefs win 38-35. Looking at the second half specifically, have you ever seen an Andy Reid coach team, at least here in Kansas City, put on that kind of a coaching clinic, and the way that the offense was able just to, eviscerate the Philadelphia Eagles defense in the second half?
Yeah, it was really impressive. I saw a stat out there where, the Chiefs scored 3 touchdowns on their 3 second half drives, and then that 4th drive, they got to the 1 yard line. They could have scored if Jerick McKinnon wanted to, but instead made the wise play to slide down. So basically, you're talking about they got every available yard of offense if they wanted it on offense in the second half. You can't do any better. You cannot physically do any better than to gain every yard that's available to you. So it really was kind of the completion of them coming full circle from their offseason. Last year in the AFC Championship game, Cincinnati Bengals dropped 8 against them. And the Chiefs tried to throw around it. You know what I mean? They tried to rely on Patrick Mahomes, who kind of lost his mind a little bit in the second half. But what the Chiefs didn't do was get under center, run the football, have a power run game, and just march it down the field if the other team was going to put a bunch of small bodies on the field. What you saw the Eagles do is they kept a bunch of small bodies on the field. They wanted to take away the Chiefs' pass game. So what did the Chiefs do? A lot of times they lined up, they put tight ends on the field, they got under center, and they ran right at them. And they did it successfully. So it's like the Chiefs completed and made up for and fixed the fatal flaw they had a year ago, and they did it, and it came together in the Super Bowl, and it helped them win the Super Bowl. Now, Patrick Mahomes was amazing, and he had his scramble, and he had his throws and everything like that, and obviously he was the most valuable player of the game and led the Chiefs and was the biggest thing that went right for them. But it does feel, I'm sure, satisfying for the Chiefs front office to be able to look at this and the coaching staff to know that the kryptonite that they had a year ago, the thing that kept them from the Super Bowl, was the thing that they fixed in the offseason they got better at, and it helped them win the Super Bowl in the very next season. So it was really impressive to see that from the Chiefs and for their offense to perform the way they did, especially with the way the Eagles were performing. I mean, if you'd have told me before the game that Jalen Hurts was going to play like that, I'd have thought the Chiefs would lose by, multiple scores. So the Chiefs offense came in and rescued them and saved the day. And a lot of that goes to being more balanced and doing things differently than they did a season ago, learning some tough lessons and being able to profit from it the very next year.
And I'm glad you bring up the idea of this kryptonite and some of the things that they had to overcome. When Jake and I have discussed this, going out through the early parts of this week here on Mic'd Up, my thing is was pointed to think about all the things the Chiefs were able to do that they couldn't do earlier this season. They salted a game away by running the football, a thing that they were struggling with immensely earlier this year and even years prior. This year, the Chiefs could not convert a 3rd and 1 to save their lives. One of the worst teams in the entire NFL at converting 3rd and 1. What do they need to do on the final crucial drive? They have to convert a 3rd and 1, and they run a very excellently designed little sweep, essentially, to Isaiah Pacheco. What do you think was this just a great way for the Chiefs that this win maybe is even elevated by how many, demons they had to conquer in this game? Because there were so many moments where the Chiefs had to go to a situation that they had struggled with all year, and yet this is a game, and this brightest of moments, they pulled through. Does that elevate or add anything to this win with those type of moments they had to overcome throughout this game?
I think so. You want to talk about demons? How about punt returns for the Chiefs?
Very
all year,
true.
Right? Then they get the longest punt return in Super Bowl history to set up the score that puts them up 8 points. I mean, how unbelievable to have all these things kind of tie together. And going back to that 3rd and 1 run play, I asked Andy Reid about it a couple days ago, and you talk about cleverly designed. It's funny because it's actually, we know Andy Reid loves to go back in the history books. They ran that Rose Bowl parade play back against the 49ers a few years back in a short yardage setting. This one is actually the old buck sweep from like Vince Lombardi and the Packers, where you have split backs and Andy Reid said, hey, that's a really common play I ran at Sacramento State, 30 years ago, whatever the case may be. So for the Chiefs to pull that way out of the files, to surprise the Eagles with it, and then, the most important thing is, look, I was talking about this with a colleague. If that thing goes for -3 yards, what are we talking about today? Like, why did they pull this 1950s Green Bay Packers play out when the Super Bowl's on the line? What are you doing? Well, they executed it perfectly. Michael Burton hits the kickout block. You've got two linemen pulling who are able to get their guys on the ground. Ends up Isaiah Pacheco's downfield 10 yards, and there's only one on-block guy, and that guy tackles him. But otherwise, Pacheco goes the distance on that run. So this is what we talk about, just the details of being able to not only have these creative things that surprise teams, but the cojones to run them at a time in the Super Bowl when you need a first down, and then the execution to make all those details right to get the thing to work. So we're talking about this great play design instead of saying, why in the world did the Chiefs lose the Super Bowl on a Green Bay Packers play from Vince Lombardi? So, it is pretty amazing to watch this, and I think that kind of makes up the essence of the Chiefs. They have very clever schemes. They have things that they can do, but at game point, what do they do better than other teams? They just get those plays run properly, and so many times in this game, the Chiefs got their offense right, and that's the reason that they won the Super Bowl.
It seems sometimes the key to a great play is not always about the design, but it's about execution. And I think you're right, Jesse, in that at the end of the day, the Chiefs just find a way to execute perfectly, almost better than anyone else. I can't move us out of a Super Bowl conversation without discussing the offensive line performance, which, by the way, every member of the offensive line rocking a version of the 0 sacks t-shirt at the parade yesterday made my entire afternoon after Orlando Brown said 0 sacks, put it on a expletive t-shirt. The offensive line was the one that there might have been a mismatch. That was a discussion all entire week going into the Super Bowl was, the Eagles had 70 sacks as a team. Hassan Reddick has 16 and a half. There's 4 different players with 10 plus sacks. Hassan Reddick's going up against Andrew Wiley. Mahomes is going to be under pressure. That was a common narrative the entire lead up to the Super Bowl. And then the Chiefs sit there and allow 0 sacks and overall, not even a lot of pressures, just overall bird's eye view. How would you describe and look at the Chiefs offensive line performance in Super Bowl 57?
Yeah, I mean, they deserve to gloat if they got that, because obviously that was the one big mismatch on paper that the Eagles had. And they were dominant in that area all year. But, this was different from a couple years ago. And I remember going on some radio shows last week to say this. It's like, everyone's like, oh, could this end up like the Tampa Bay game? Well, it's like, everyone, hey, the Chiefs were down like 3 to 4 offensive linemen that game. They were shuffling guys to places they'd never been. I mean, the Chiefs were healthy in this game. I mean, they had their guys. And, you could say, hey, there was times that Orlando Brown has gotten beat on speed rushes around the edge. That'd be accurate. Or you could say, hey, Andrew Wiley is not the top of the top right tackles. Even if, I was arguing last week, he's one of the most valuable players on the team, because based off of what he makes and the way he's solidified that position, especially after an early season injury, he's been plenty good for the Chiefs, especially in a very crucial spot. So the Chiefs were healthy, and you knew the interior was really good going into the game anyway. But yeah, I mean, their performance, I've got a video up on kansascity.com this morning talking about how they opened up holes in the run game too, and were dominant that way. There was an earlier 3rd and 1. Chiefs ran a lot with Michael Burton last year. They put Jerick McKinnon in that spot, but ends up gaining 14 yards just because, oh, by the way, Creed Humphrey and Joe Tooney went beast mode and just blew their guys off the ball about 5 yards. And all of a sudden, this sort of fullback dive play turns into a 14-yard gain because Jerick McKinnon's running and there's nobody around him. So it was a dominant performance on their part. I will caveat it just a touch, because we saw that, for example, we talked about the Bills defensive line going against the the Bengals really bad offensive line. And then it was a snow game and it was slick in Buffalo and they couldn't get their footing and they really impacted the game. That was kind of a major narrative. I do think the slippery surface at the Super Bowl did help the Chiefs. I mean, I just got to be honest. The Chiefs pass rush was not very good either. But I think if you were looking at those two sides and saying if both sides pass rush gets neutralized, who does the advantage go to? Well, it obviously goes to the Chiefs. And so we did see some slipping. We did see some guys change cleats. We saw maybe them not get the same get off as they would on perfect conditions. And so we do have to factor that in. But all in all, those big guys deserve to wear those shirts, deserve to puff out their chest a little bit, because in the biggest game of the season, the most important moment, they kept Patrick Mahomes upright, and they also were part of a dominant run game. And that's what helped win the Chiefs the Super Bowl, and it's the reason that they're going to be getting rings here in a few months.
I'm actually kind of glad you went to the field for a minute. I think that's a great point, Jesse. It's a great point that the field probably did slow down the Eagles' pass rush a little bit. Mitchell Schwartz, the former right tackle for the Chiefs, brought this up on Twitter when everyone was discussing the field and the cleats. And everyone, some of the advanced specific statistics came out. The Chiefs were slipping a little bit less than the Eagles. And Mitchell Schwartz points out that apparently there's this hyper fixation in Kansas City about making sure you got the right cleats on for the game with the surface. Do you think that maybe the Chiefs had a little bit of a better time with the service because of the cleats? And if so, I know this is a very kind of nuanced and out there thing to discuss. Would you give any reason why the Eagles didn't just try switching their cleats? Because I know there's a shot of Jalen Hurts that changed his cleats at some point in the game early on because of slipping issues, but the Eagles kept slipping all game and no one changed spikes. Is that just the Eagles maybe didn't have them available, or just did they not think of that solution?
Yeah, I don't know. It'd be tough to know without getting to both sides. I know there was a report during the game that a bunch of the Eagles had switched their cleats. At halftime, they kind of showed a big pile of white shoes that were kind of on a platform that basically showed that the Eagles had decided to abandon ship with what they had. But, it goes back into those details and not overlooking anything. I would assume the Chiefs probably were slightly more prepared. Now, having said that, there were times when the Chiefs slipped too. I mean, McDuffie was kind of slipping all over the place out there as he did in the first game, which is a little bit, a kind of full circle too, because remember he got injured in that first game on that same surface and missed quite a few weeks because of that. So it wasn't like the Chiefs were not going down at all, but they maybe did have the situation figured out just a little bit more. And I think it was Mitchell that made this point on Twitter too, but it does ring true. The conditions are out there for both teams. And so who deals with it better, who adjusts to it better, as you're referencing, the team's going to get an advantage. And so if the Chiefs were slightly more prepared, then yeah, to the victors go the spoils. And it seemed like they slipped just a little bit less than the Eagles did and maybe got a little bit of advantage because of that. But all in all, I would say that, if you're playing on a slippery surface, that is going to hamper the pass rush a little bit. And if it was going to hamper the pass rush, that's going to favor the Chiefs over the Eagles just because that was one of the dominant parts of the Eagles all season.
Jesse Newell is my guest, covers the Kansas City Chiefs for the Kansas City Star. You can follow Jesse on Twitter at Jesse Newell. All right, I've been discussing a little bit today the offseason and what the Chiefs might need to do. They have some different free agents in different spots. Some guys they want to try and come back. Some guys, they might let walk due to price point and things like that. Looking at this Chiefs team and the players, Orlando Brown, Andrew Wiley, McCole Hardman, Juju Smith-Schuster, just to name a few, of any of their pending free agents, who do you think should be their priority number one? Price be damned. They need to try and find a way to make sure this individual is on the team next year. Or moreover, is there a guy at all on this team that you think is a must-have no matter what? This guy must be on the team next year.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I would go back to last Chiefs offseason because I think we have the answer to this. And I think this is the smart answer to this and it's the correct answer to this, which is you don't deal that way. That's not how it works with Patrick Mahomes on your books. Nobody is a non-negotiable with Patrick Mahomes there because he's the one you focus on. Because, a year ago at the time we said, how can the Chiefs function without Tyreek Hill? How could they do that? The guy's a future Hall of Famer. He's the fastest guy in the league. Well, we know now how they did it. They traded him away. They got draft picks. They got better in the defense. Overall, they got cheaper, and they won a Super Bowl. So there is no have to have. There is no have to do this. There is no this guy must be this because you have Patrick Mahomes. I mean, Patrick Mahomes makes so much right, and you have Andy Reid too. You have to throw him in that discussion as well. Those two together, and they've got Travis Kelce already signed, so you have that piece locked in. So I think that's the way the Chiefs operate now. You don't paint yourself into a corner. You don't get yourself into a bidding war against yourself. You say, hey, look, if Orlando Brown likes protecting Patrick Mahomes' blind side and he wants to come to terms that is slightly team friendly, but still makes him, one of the top, 5-ish tackles paid, and you like that number and he likes the number and you come to it, great, you do it. If he wants to reset the market, okay, you don't do it. Same thing with Chris Jones. I mean, Chris Jones was an amazing player for the Chiefs. He helped them win the Super Bowl. He helped them get to the Super Bowl in the AFC Championship game. If he wants to go like Travis Kelce and say, hey, I love being with Coach Andy Reid. I want to win a bunch of Super Bowls. I love being with Patrick Mahomes. I like living here, all that sort of stuff. I don't want to be paid top of the market money, but give me top 5. I'll be happy with it. You can fit it on your cap, do those things. I think you sign him. I think you sign him long term, even though he's older than most of the guys that Brett Veach has signed. If he says, hey, forget it. I'm the best guy out there. I want to reset the market. Patrick be danged. Give me my money. Then I think the Chiefs have to look to trade him. So the bottom line is this. I think it's almost a little bit in these players' court. You know what I mean? Like, what do you want out of this? If you want the Kelce route, if you want to say, hey, money's not that important to me. I love being with Big Red. I love the opportunity they give me. I love being with Pat. The money takes care of itself. I'll be fine afterwards. Then I think you probably get signed with the Chiefs. If you want to reset the market, if you want to be like Tyreek Hill and say, and again, there's nothing wrong with that. Like if I was to stop my industry and wanted to get paid and take care of my family for generations to come, that's not a selfish decision. That is a rational decision. But if that's the way that certain players want to play this, I think the Chiefs got to move on, because they showed last year they could do that. They could move on from a great player, get the resources back, reset their cap, and still win football games, because they have Andy Reid and they have Patrick Mahomes. The rest of the pieces are interchangeable. So we'll see what happens this offseason. But I would be very surprised if the Chiefs reset the market on anybody or do something where they say, we have to do this, because just last offseason, every move they made, they went, we don't have to do this, and it ended up helping them win a Super Bowl.
I think that's a great point, Jesse. I think the Chiefs have their strategy, and they might make sure that they employ it going forward. All right, Jesse, my final two questions, my two for the road for you. First things first, if you were a player in the victory parade, because I'm just very curious, what would be your strategy? Would you just chill on the bus, kind of enjoy the vibes? Would you be like some of the players running around, high-fiving everybody? What would be your kind of vibe and your plan if you were a player in a victory parade?
Yeah, I think it would depend on your alcohol intake. Obviously, if you're doing a lot of it, you might just want to stick on that bus, take a nice, easy ride around. It was really cool seeing some of the players go down there, shake hands, sign autographs. I wrote a story last week about Noah Gray, who has type 1 diabetes, has been an inspiration to kids. I saw some photos online of him getting down there, like sharing fruit snacks with kids who had his shirt and his jersey, and obviously sharing that potential, that living with that disease with them. So cool moments like that is what the parade is made of. So I would think that in that moment, you would want to be down there with the people and taking photos and selfies and remembering it the rest of your life. But I can totally understand if you partied a little bit too hard, then I think the bus is your location.
I'm with you there. And I'm glad you brought the youngsters here, Jesse, because my final question for you, you had a whole year covering the Chiefs. They had such a great rookie class. I know this is going to be hard, and it's like maybe asking you to pick like a favorite child or something. Is there any one of these rookies in particular you had the most fun covering this year and getting to see how their season played out?
Yeah, I think Sky Moore, he is one of the most likable people in the locker room, and he obviously went through it earlier this year with all the Chiefs making him or having him punt return. And he had the fumbles, and he had the lowest moments, and he answered the questions then. And so to see him get the punt return in the Cincinnati game, the AFC Championship game, to basically send him to the Super Bowl. I just remember him sitting in his locker afterwards. He kind of was leaning back, kind of looking to the sky, and he just almost couldn't believe it. You just can't believe your reality. And the same thing with him catching a touchdown pass in the Super Bowl. He had 0 touchdown catches all season, and he catches the final touchdown for the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. You see kind of the growth through that. And what's interesting is I pulled up, he had a draft documentary done on his draft day, and had a film crew following around, and he was with his buddies right after the Chiefs took him, and he said to his buddies, he goes, he just kind of in disbelief the Chiefs took him, but he goes, I'm about to win the Super Bowl, and he kind of laughs, and he goes, there's about to be Super Bowl tuds, there's about to be Super Bowl touchdowns. Well, sure enough, he won the Super Bowl, and even though he had none all year, he got himself a Super Bowl tud, a football that Patrick Mahomes made sure he had and got and kept for the rest of his life. So that is a pretty cool moment to see him be able to do that and come full circle with his season. And, very likable kid, a guy who always talked to us in the locker room. And for him, his career to start this way, a year after, he was thinking about returning to college. His college coach told him to return to Western Michigan. The NFL will still be there. He thought, he was projected to be potentially a 5th-round pick. Decided to come out a year later. He's a Super Bowl champion. That was pretty cool to follow.
That is such a great story, Jesse. And I do employ all of our listeners here. Go check it out. Jesse does some great work in the Kansas City Star. Jesse, thank you so much for joining us, my friend. Enjoy a little bit of a break of this Chiefs offseason, and maybe you'll kind of be able to kick your feet up a little bit now that at least you're not following the Chiefs around all the time.
Yeah, we'll see. I combined in a week and a half, so my feet will get kicked up here very, very shortly, but maybe come down very quickly after.
We'll see. All right. Thanks so much, Jesse.
All right, appreciate it.
That is Jesse Newell of the Kansas City Star. Always a great time when I get a chance to catch up with Jesse and chat with him a little bit. And yeah, he gets a small break. Then the combine is coming up, so I guess there truly is no rest for the weary in this business that we have around here. But always fun. But man, Sky Moore, I didn't know he had a little drafty YouTube documentary he had done. Which do it, man. You do you. But to get drafted by the Chiefs, say, going to get me a Super Bowl ring, and there's going to be Super Bowl tuds. And then you catch your first receiving touchdown of your career in the Super Bowl, and you get your ring. That is a very beautiful full circle moment. And Sky Moore, an incredibly easy guy to root for, in my opinion. So love to see it. It was very enjoyable going forward, but who knows? Might be some more touchdowns in Sky Moore's future, nonetheless. We'll take a time out here on Mic'd Up. Coming up next, this time for You Did What? Here on Mic'd Up. Time for You Did What here on Mic'd Up. I bring Kyle back in to help me with this. And Kyle, before I introduce the story, I'll ask you this. Are you a sports memorabilia guy? Like, Jake and I talked this to the Super Bowl. I, don't own any merch from when the Chiefs won the Super Bowl in Super Bowl 54 or when the Royals won the World Series. I just don't buy merchandise. I've never had the expendable income to do it. And then I just have my memories of the event. Are you a guy who likes to buy memorabilia when your team wins a title?
Yeah, I'm kind of the same as you. Like when the Royals were going to the World Series and I was a little younger, I wanted to buy shirts and stuff then. But like from KU's last championship and the Chiefs' last Super Bowl, I don't think I even got a shirt there. So it's kind of strange, but I don't think I am either.
Yeah, it's a thing. Like I don't judge anyone that does, but it's just a thing for me personally. As I told Jake, I remember every day my teams clinched their championship. Remember those days in full detail. I just don't buy any memorabilia for it. But speaking of sports memorabilia, good thing we're not in South Carolina, where there's been a seizure of fake sports memorabilia. A lot of fake sports memorabilia. Like 600 fake championship rings. Sports memorabilia. Law enforcement agents down in South Carolina confiscated over 600 fake championship rings across the 4 major U.S. sports leagues and the NCAA from a South Carolina memorabilia store as part of a gigantic counterfeit merchandise seizure. This was announced by the South Carolina Secretary of State. The counterfeit goods could have fetched as much as $15 million at retail. There are fake NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, and NCAA championship rings. This hoard included 157 Super Bowl rings, 83 NBA Finals rings, 99 World Series rings. It bothers me that that's not 100. 29 Stanley Cup rings, and 251 NCAA championship rings for unnamed sports. This was raided from Kirk's Collectibles at an upstate mall on February 8th. No arrests have been made. There's also non-sports memorabilia that is sold at the shop, according to their website. The South Carolina Secretary of State's office said it cannot share information about the number of suspects and some details, as there's a deeper investigation ongoing. 600 fake rings.
That's a lot.
That's a ton. $15 million in potential sales.
That would have been the first red flag for me. Is just that how do
you have that much?
A shop in South Carolina, how would they come across 600 rings?
That's my first question. I don't know a lot about the sports memorabilia game. I don't know about these shops that are just specialized in selling memorabilia. I don't know, if it makes sense, because I know we'll hear stories about guys selling their rings and stuff like that for often very sad causes, and that's a big bummer. And then there's sometimes, people do it for charity and stuff like that. Like, I know that there's reasons why specific championship rings are floating around. I know that there are legit reasons why legit of those things are lying around. How 600 would not raise anyone's flag is beyond me. This is a deeper investigation that is apparently being led by the Department of Homeland Security. Don't know why they're involved or what. Then again, I don't know a lot what their jurisdictions are. So this is probably like a deeper counterfeit merchandise ring happening. That's probably like the first step in a big bust. But 600 fake rings. Like, I'm very intrigued at the quality of these products. Like, how good, like, I mean, as we both know, championship rings are not small. Like, they're huge, covered in diamonds. Like, I'm very intrigued at what these might have looked like, but I want you to imagine if you were such a diehard that you, like, had to buy someone's old championship ring to show off. How devastated would you be if you found out the championship ring you bought for probably a very pretty penny was a fake?
I wouldn't know how to handle that. I'd be very sad.
I'd be devastated. Not even just the monetary loss. Like, I probably lost a lot of money because of that. Just those, like, the memories that are supposed to be associated with, a championship ring for a team you probably loved. My other question is this. They said they had 251 NCAA championship rings for unnamed sports. I'm intrigued at what sports we got to here. Like, basketball and football national championship rings. Okay. Were there some hockey ones in there? Were there some women's basketball ones in there? Not taking a shot at anybody, just not a thing you often think of. Were there some baseball championship rings tossed in there? Was there how many Oklahoma softball championship rings were in that collection? Because they've won a bunch. Like, I saw this and I'm just fascinated by the amount. 29 Stanley Cup rings? Like, at least they know, like, the Stanley Cup rings probably ain't going to sell a bunch. But, like, it's just, I mean, absolutely insane with the amount that they seized. First off, I hope no one got scammed here and bought too much fake merchandise. Who knows? We don't know there. But that is just an absurd number of fake rings and fake merchandise. 83 NBA Finals rings, 157 Super Bowl rings. And I'm still incredibly bothered by only 99 World Series rings. Give me some round numbers, counterfeiters. Give me some round numbers. It'll make me feel better. That'll do it for You Did What Today. A nice little story about some fake sports memorabilia. We'll take another time out. When we come back, the Chiefs and their offseason plans. We'll kind of look at that going forward. Welcome back into Mic'd Up here on 580 WIBW. Fulton Cast here with you as we move ever closer to the end of today's show. About 20 more minutes to go here on this Thursday edition of Mic'd Up. It's a cold one out there. If you don't have to drive today, please don't. Like, I'm not kidding. Once I get home after work here, after, obviously finish the day, what have you, do my job. I'm not leaving my house. I'm going back to my apartment, and I'm not leaving. I'm going to sit there and stay off of these roads because they've gotten a little better, which, of course, is the shout-out to the great road crews we have here in the capital city, doing a great job. Roads were much better than I expected them to do when I left my apartment, because apparently I'm about to transition to some weather talk, so bear with me here. When I walked out of my apartment today, we got an email from some people here at the office who had done some great work. Shout out to Roy and Ricky and the gang here at 580 WIBW for getting our like station parking lot not a mess. It is much better than it honestly probably had any right to be than when this whole ice storm or icing whatever came through overnight. But I was warned about the ice. Like, okay, I'll go a little bit slower, whatever. It'll be fine. I'm a classic. It's like cold weather specifically. I am a classic not take it seriously as I should guy. It's like, I'll get out there, probably a little bit of snow, might need a little bit of ice to scrape off the car. No big deal though, right? My parking lot was an ice skate. I am confident I could, if I owned ice skates, I could have strapped them on and played hockey in my parking lot. Like, I was like doing the old man shuffle to get to my car to not hurt myself. And then my car was quite literally a block of ice. Every inch of my car was covered in a layer of ice. I was not prepared for that. Took me a minute to get it undone. I got it thawed out, figured it out, but we got here safe. But yeah, I was not prepared for that. And then as I've looked outside more and more during some of these breaks, I've, gone out, stretched the legs a little bit, looked up front. I've seen like more snow coming down. Like, I don't know how much snow is going to be on my car when I leave, but I know there's going to be some snow on it. Yeah, this is all that tells me I need to know. I'm staying home. I'm going to leave here, take some dinner at home, chill out, watch some TV. I'm not going to do anything. And I am for the rest of you. whenever you get home from your various jobs and whatnot, do the same. I hope also today, if you could work from home, that you and your boss let you work from home, because this is the kind of day that's built for. We learned a lot about remote work through the COVID issues that we had as a country, and we learned that some jobs you actually can afford to just work from home, which times like this are perfectly built. No reason to risk yourself for anything else. So if you are at home, stay at home, chill, stay warm. And if you have to drive and be out and about today, just be safe. I'll give you all the message that my father gave to me and has been giving to me for almost 10 years at this point, since I really started driving, which is take it slower, be simple, be easy. There's nothing worth being in a rush on an icy road and getting hurt over. So just be chill. But it is a very cold and icy day here in the capital city. Jake, unfortunately, has to travel all the way out to Smith City. But as far as I know, our good friends in the state of Missouri, and I don't think I'm ever going to say that phrase, didn't get a lot of bad weather. So I assume once Jake kind of got past Kansas City, he was probably fine as he moved more into, that state to the east. But Jake will be in Jeff City, Missouri tonight from Jason Gymnasium on the campus of Lincoln University of Missouri, as the Washburn Ichabod's women's and men's basketball teams will take on the Lincoln Blue Tigers. This evening, tip-off for the women's contest will be at 5:30. The men is scheduled for about 7:30, or just roughly whenever the women's game is done. Those second parts of doubleheader tips are always kind of an ETA, a little bit of an estimated time for a tip-off. You can hear Jake's call of both of those games coming up on our sister station, Country 106.9. Coming up, again, that tip-off for the women's games coming up at 5:30. Pre-game starting at about 5:15 or so with the Jake football. So listen to that. Drive balance between that if you want to catch some Washburn hoops coming up this evening. As always, you can be part of the show on the Big O Terrace text line, 785-272-9429. Then, of course, you can also hop in the comment section of our YouTube live stream as well. Fourth on 580 is the YouTube channel. As always, if you aren't subscribed, if you would do that, you would surely appreciate it. You can watch the live stream of Mike Duff with Jake and myself. You can watch the live stream Monday through Friday, 3 to 6 of 580 Sports Talk with Brendan and Dan. And then also, you can, as always, check out our instant reaction show as well. Instant reaction shows, we had it for all the Chiefs games. Those are done, but you can look back at any of those. You want to look back at any of those preview games, for State games. Jake has some Washington instant reactions on there as well. We have a lot of great content on our Sports on 5 at the YouTube page. Feel free to check it out in the free time when you, if you would so choose. To wrap up this edition of Mic'd Up, however, the Chiefs have some decisions to make for their offseason moves, and they have some time to figure it out. I'm actually going to take a minute here and see when the new league year starts up for the NFL coming up this year. March 15th, the 2023. I thought it was going to be sometime in March. Wow, it's literally a month from yesterday. So basically a month away. The new league year begins on March 15th. At that point, unrestricted free agents and trades can start being executed, and things that happened prior to the start of the league year will be commenced. So March 15th, the Chiefs got a month till the new league year begins, which means we're about to start having a lot of conversations about a lot of different things for the Chiefs coming up this year. And we'll see just what they try to figure out and what they want to try and do here as they go through the rest of this year. We'll see what the Chiefs can do, what they can try and make their decisions on, and try and figure out who they want to keep, who they don't want to keep. Of course, we have the NFL Combine coming up at the end of this month as well. We have until March 7th. March 7th is the deadline prior to 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 o'clock Central. It's the deadline to designate franchise tag play. So they got till March 7th, so a few weeks, to figure out, actually just under 3, so 2.5 weeks, figure out what they want to do with Orlando Brown, which is always, one of their biggest things that they're trying to figure it out. And we'll see what they're going to have to do here. But they have to make decisions. And we discussed some of the decisions earlier. In case you didn't hear, these were kind of the rapid fire of decisions I made. I think guys that need to be back should have a concerted effort to be back, or guys that just will be back because there's no other thing that they probably will do. Orlando Brown, at least franchise tag him. Juju Smith-Schuster should hopefully be back. Andrew Wiley, I'd like to bring back both tackles. I think that would really solidify the Chiefs' offensive line. Colin Saunders, I think between him and Derek Nottie, he's the defensive tackle that I personally would keep. I think he does as well of a job run stopping, and he's a much better pass rusher than Derek Nottie as well. And then Michael Burton, he'll be back for sure. I have him in the back category, but that's just because I don't foresee Burton wanting to go anywhere else, and the Chiefs love having a good fullback. It's just what Andy Reid loves to do. Then I have the more complicated maybe category, which are guys that I think the Chiefs will try and re-sign and could come back, but I don't think are necessities to come back. Mecole Hardman was one. The Chiefs have been nice to have some more receiver help. They want in addition to MVS, Sky Moore, and Kadarius Toney. But I don't know if you need Mecole Hardman back, particularly since you have Kadarius Toney to kind of do some of the things that they do as well. I would have to assume it would be very similar. Carlos Dunlap. I don't know what Carlos Dunlap's going to do. I think he's going to keep playing. I don't think he's going to retire just yet. But he got his 100 sacks. He got a Super Bowl ring. He doesn't have a lot left to prove. And I mean, Dunlap wants to come back on basically a kind of a one-year vet deal. Bring him back. It's good edge rusher depth, but at the same time, not a necessity. Like, well, that comes down to tight end room. I'm a Jody Fortson guy. We all know this. The Belldozer was good, but he's been a lot of good tight end sets when he was injured this year. That'll probably come down to just mutual interest. Jerick McKinnon, I think, is a big one. I would like him back. He's a good veteran presence. He's done a good job as being a third down back for the Chiefs, but maybe because he got his career high 10 total touchdowns, maybe someone will pay him more. I don't know. That's such an iffy thing there. It comes down to mutual interest again. Juan Thornhill, you have Brian Cook if you don't get him back. I wouldn't pay Juan Thornhill a ton of money because I don't think he had a great year, but he had a pretty good year. He's a guy that if he wants to be back for the right price, go for it, but you have safety depth. So that's why I'm there on Juan Thornhill. And then Nick Allegretti is offensive line depth that you don't need for sure because you have other linemen who could probably begin to fill that void, but he is so versatile, particularly on the interior, being able to play guard and some center in a pinch. Maybe you try to bring him back, but I don't know. Those are kind of my maybe categories to try and sort through. I think those are the ones you got to think the hardest on trying to really narrow down your decision you want to make. And then in the 16 unrestricted free agents, I had 4 cut candidates. I said Derek Nottie, Ronald Jones, Deion Bush, and Justin Watson. I just don't want them. Like, Derek Nottie, I think it truly comes down to you pick between him and Colin Saunders. I don't think you pay both. I pay Colin Saunders. Turk Wharton hurt his ACL early enough in the year, and he had a contract year, but I think with the injury, he'll probably re-sign in Kansas City, but who knows. But if you re-sign Turk Wharton as well, I mean, I think him and Colin would be big on Turk. Since he's back off his ACL, can give you some depth as well. And then, other veteran free agents, the draft, late draft picks, other than that, can always help you out as well. Deion Bush comes down especially if you re-sign Juan Thornhill, you don't re-sign Deion Bush because then Brian Cook can keep being your third safety. If you don't, can Najee Johnson just be your third safety? I mean, he played a lot of special teams. The Chiefs liked him enough to keep him on the roster as a rookie this year, as a late 7th round pick. I maybe just see if Najee Johnson can take that next step and give him an opportunity as well. Ronald Jones, that I think is just done. Like, Rojo got some snaps, got some run, but there's obviously a disconnect there. The Chiefs have enough talented players in the running back room already. I just don't think that's going to happen. They'll go somewhere else to get another probably 1 year or 2 year deal. And then Justin Watson, if you want extra wide receiver depth, do it. But he was nice. He fit some roles. He did some things right. At the end of the day, he was still buried on the depth chart with what the Chiefs had at receiver. I mean, if Juju doesn't come back and Mecole Hardman doesn't come back, then I'd probably lean more and maybe moving Justin Watson away from that cut category. But as of now, with some of the priorities and things they think they can do with their draft capital as well, the Chiefs are going to have at least 10 draft picks, if not more, with some compensatory things from free agency compensatory picks coming up in the draft this year. I don't think those are necessities because you can do so much with that draft capital. You have seen what Brett Beach can do with the draft capital. But those are just kind of the decisions. And I think this is a good time to start thinking. Like I said earlier, Chiefs are going to probably have right now at about $11 million in cap space. The cap is jumping up, which that helps the cap space as well. And then you can save about $21 million by cutting Rick Clark. It's not paying on the $30 million cap space. He might be back on a restructuring, but I even doubt that. I think Frank's going to go somewhere else. But Frank got his 2 rings. I'm happy for him. You can probably extend Chris Jones, lower his $28 million cap hit down, really make some room there. And then you can always restructure the Mahomes deal, trigger his restructure, move some stuff into a roster bonus. And you can free up like $20 million there. So the cap is flexible. I think the Chiefs can ease, and I use the word easily intentionally here. I think they're just a couple of very simple moves. The Chiefs can get to about 40 to 45 million in cap space, but you need some flexibility. I don't know what Brett Veach is going to do. Like when I talked to Jesse earlier, we kind of had some thoughts about, will the Chiefs make any big moves anymore? I think they're going to try and keep themselves flexible and not overspend and lock themselves into too big contracts anymore with Mahomes. But who knows? We'll see what they do going forward. But at least there's some decisions to make. And they got until March 7th to figure out the franchise tag. And I think between now and then, Orlando Brown and his representation and the Chiefs are going to have a lot of long talks about a contract extension again. And then I think if nothing comes through, Orlando will get the franchise tag. And I think Brett Veach and company will also have to work on it with Chris Jones. But you got a month till the new league year begins. You got about 2.5 weeks to the franchise tag deadline. But these are decisions you got to make. We'll see what the Chiefs do going forward. But they got some things they need to do, but a lot of them are just problems you are okay with having when you're a Super Bowl championship winning franchise. Let's look at one final time out here on Mike Up. Coming next, wrap things up. Mike Drop. Time for the mic drop to wrap up things here on Mic'd Up this afternoon. A solo show in the books. Jake will be back tomorrow, so don't worry if you're one of those that really like hearing Jake's voice. I know there's some of you out there. It's totally okay. I get it. He will be back on tomorrow's show with me as well. Back to the dynamic duo in full swing. For the mic drop today, baseball's back, and I'm so happy. I can't lie. I can't lie. We're finally into the mode where we're talking baseball a lot more. We got spring training videos coming out. Next week, the Royals play their first spring training game. I can't hide my excitement. At some point, the Royals do something that's going to make me start becoming really sad and really annoyed. But that moment hasn't come yet, so I'm just going to let my optimism reign supreme for the Royals going forward. But baseball's back. and I'm loving every minute of it. That'll do it for my tip today. Coming up next, 580 Sports Talk with Brendan and Dan. Have yourselves a great rest of your Thursday.